Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to your WWE Raw review for September 5th, 2022. Or is it? Because before we even think about discussing tonight's Monday Night Raw, this podcast is going to be primarily focused on the shitstorm currently going on right now in AEW. Things are a mess. We were here for the all-out review last night, and a lot of the drama unfolding on the media scrum was happening in real time, and we were doing our best to react to that. But today, we have found out much more information, and we found out about the backlash and the fallout, which apparently took place right after and during the media scrum while it was still taking place. CM Punk confronted by the Young Bucks. Apparently a fight broke out. There were punches thrown. There were chairs thrown. There was biting, apparently. And shit is a circus right now in AEW. As I put on Twitter just a little while ago, go back and tell your January selves that Vince McMahon would retire from WWE and the AEW locker room would turn into the NXT parking lot by the end of the summer, and just film your reaction. Was any of this shit on any of your bingo cards this year? I mean, my God, what a difference, just a few months can make, and how momentum can swing and switch in the business. And a few months ago, I feel like these companies were literally in opposite positions. WWE had the turmoil, WWE had the chaos, WWE had the frustration, the talent unhappy, low morale, all that stuff. And just in a very short amount of time, that pendulum has completely swung, and now Triple H is in control. He's got a much better grip on things. Talent isn't so terrified to work for WWE anymore. Meanwhile, inexperienced Tony Khan is starting to crumble and unravel a little bit, and he's got a world champion that is an absolute madman, and a lot of dust has gotten kicked up. And CM Punk came in a year ago to seemingly help AEW, and between Punk coming in and Cody leaving, AEW has almost imploded in on itself, and shit's a mess right now. So we're going to kind of unpack all of that first, because there's a lot to discuss. There's lots of different parts of this drama that to talk about, because it branches off in so many different directions. And of course, I'm going to share my opinions on it. I'm sure you guys have got plenty of opinions on it as well. It's crazy times in the wrestling business. It's great for people like me who, make a partial living on YouTube talking about wrestling, so the interest is usually high. When stuff like this goes down, the drama is very interesting and can be very juicy, and in a lot of ways fun to watch unfold, but it can also be really scary to watch unfold, because you do love and respect a lot of these wrestlers, and you want there to be at least most people who are sane anyway, and aren't, as I've coined them, an ass monkey. For those of you, most of us would want to have two strong competing North American wrestling organizations, and we don't want one of them to implode. That's why we're also happy that WWE has turned the corner and stopped giving us so much shit now that Vince is gone. So that's a good thing. So I was hoping that was going to be WWE turning the corner to basically run parallel with AEW, just hitting on all cylinders, and I thought that was going to translate into wonderful things for wrestling fans. But as WWE began to turn the corner, AEW began to fall off, and there's been talk of suspensions, release requests, backstage scuffles, fights. They don't have, the cohesion that, maybe of WWE, somebody like Vince McMahon in charge would have, and it has caused a lot of issues behind the scenes. And I, for one, now that I've had a chance to go back and watch that media scrum and watch watch CM Punk's reaction to the Colt Cabana stuff, how he spoke, how angry he seemed, and how he seemed perfectly comfortable doing all of this right next to his boss, with the boss nodding along with him while he's trashing people who are executives in the company. This was all very bizarre to me. And it really makes me worried, for the internal state of AEW. I will say this really quick and make a quick point right away, because I might forget to get to it later. And I put this on Twitter earlier on tonight. As somebody who is about to turn 45 years old in 3.5 hours, 40 minutes if you live on the East Coast, as somebody of that age who's been watching wrestling forever, I remember vividly the Montreal Screwjob. I also remember being a big-time WWE supporter in the War versus WCW around that time. I did watch WCW, liked a lot of the wrestlers there, thought the Cruiserweight division was fantastic, the NWO was fun, but I preferred WWE over them for the most part. And as a WWE fan, after the Montreal Screwjob, when Vince McMahon screwed company man Bret Hart with a 20-year contract, who's currently the champion, essentially letting your champion go to WCW after you had already lost all of your big stars, your Halls and your Nashes and your Hogans and your Savage, WCW picked them off one at a time. You thought Brett was safe, and then they got him. And then not only do you screw your champion and you do a first ever screw job finish on a pay-per-view in Brett's hometown, then there's a backstage fight where Brett punches Vince McMahon in the face, and the talent was disgruntled. The talent was furious. Crush and Rick Rude famously just bounced right out of WWE. Undertaker was pissed off. A lot of wrestlers like Mick Foley, threatened not to come back to work. Things were in complete disarray. All the while, WCW now gains another big star to add to their already, soaring momentum, and the NWO was rolling. And it seemed like there was no stopping WWE or WCW, and now the WWE had taken that hit, and they had such a traumatic experience at Survivor Series in '97. I thought there was going to be no coming back for that. I'm like, well, that was the nail in the coffin for WWE. Not only did they lose Brett, but they looked like idiots doing it. And their boss got punched out. It's complete chaos in the locker room when you have your talent feels like it's okay to punch your boss. It can't get any crazier than that. So even though what happened last night at All Out was completely fucking nuts, it has happened before. And it happened in WWE 25 years ago in about 2 months from now. And that was a crazy time. And as a WWE fan, I remember being terrified that was going to spell the end for them, because they were already on the ropes. It was amazing that they were able to fight back as well as they did in '97 with the Hart Foundation and Canada feud and Austin and all of that. But in terms of what was going on internally, it was a complete dumpster fire. What happened after that? An unbelievable turnaround, to where not only did WWE survive, but within 4 months, they beat WCW in the ratings, and then a couple of months after that, it would be a regular thing, and they would never look back. So within about 6 months from that point, they were very much in the driver's seat, and they were now at the top of the wrestling business. So we've seen this big momentum shift before. It happened 25 years ago when WCW seemed unstoppable, and then one more bad thing happens to WWE with the Brett stuff and punching out Vince and all that chaos, and that was going to be it. And then next thing you know, they spin right around. I mean, a lot of that has to do with Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and AEW doesn't have either one of those. But right after that, Vince McMahon came out on TV and said that they're going to be going in that different direction. They started running with Austin. They brought Mike Tyson in, and that was enough to turn the corner. And that happened in a very, very short amount of time. So if anything, this year has taught us that don't get too excited. If you are one of these tribal ass monkeys who are very happy today, and let me just put this out there too, because we're going to be talking a lot about this type of stuff during this podcast. Let me just say this outright to any of my listeners that might feel this way, or people in the chat. If you are one of those people that actively and openly and assholishly root for another wrestling company's failure, I just want to let you know you have every right to feel that way, but I have no respect for you at all. I might engage with you in the chat or whatever, but if you have these opinions, just know that I'm not going to respect anything you say, because we're all wrestling fans here, and we should want multiple options of wrestling to watch so you can pick and choose which one you do like. But you should never root for the other one to fail because you are too fragile to just deal with the people online and on Twitter and on social media, because most people that hate AEW or have that heart filled with contempt for them, so many people feel that way about Tony Khan. This is all driven by what people on social media have said to them. So that's where all these feelings come from. And honestly, I just don't have any respect for that type of shit. And there is much bigger things at play here. There are a lot of good wrestlers and a lot of good talent who are depending on AEW's business to feed their families and to have jobs, and this is the type of shit that can really tear a company down. So nobody should be celebrating this. They should be saying, yo, AEW, get your fucking shit together, because I like William Regal, and I like Adam Cole, and I like Jon Moxley, and I like Danielson. I like Orange Cassidy. I want these people to have jobs. I want to be able to see these people on TV, but they're not going to be on TV for long if you can't get your shit together here. But the last thing in the world I'm going to do is stand on my roof and celebrate that AEW is going through some traumatic shit, because that is childish and fucking stupid. And if you feel that way, I ain't got a lick of respect for you. I got more respect in 3 of my ball hairs and a KFC napkin than I do for you. It's childish. So knock that shit off if you're going to be in this chat. But what we're going to do here is probably criticize AEW pretty heavily, but at least we have a reason to. We're not just making this shit up out of thin air. like these Kenny Olivier accounts and shit like that. There's actually problems here that need to be addressed. There's actually stuff Tony Khan needs to do. And it is time for this motherfucker to put on his big boy pants and be a boss, because he has completely lost control of everything. He sat right there and nodded his head while his champion trashed 3 executives in the company and another one of your, marquee wrestlers. That's just as unprofessional as anything in my mind that Punk is claiming was done to him. And you're the boss and you're sitting there, and how is this okay? How are you okay with this? Are you really playing both sides? Tony Khan had some very interesting responses to a lot of the questions he was asked last night about the drama in AEW. And for the people that say, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing, I think he's inexperienced, but this guy has a lot of money. He said as much last night. He's certainly passionate. It's not the passion that bothers me. I think wrestling fans are kidding themselves when they seem so bewildered by why Tony Khan's a little on the odd side. Have any of you ever met a wrestling promoter or read a book about a wrestling promoter? Do you know who these characters are? They're all fucking nuts. You've seen all the shit that Vince McMahon has done, the way he's treated reporters, the Bob Costas shit, the slapping the papers out of the other guy's hands. He's so combative. He's so, abrasive, and he just lashes out at everything all the time. And Vince McMahon has always been classified as an incredibly weird man. So, and look at the success WWE had, and look at how they benefited from his bizarreness. So somebody that ain't playing with a full deck ain't necessarily a bad thing, in my opinion, when it comes to Tony Khan. What I don't want is somebody like Nick Khan or some straight edge, stick up the ass businessman that's just, not focused on anything other than the bottom line and not so much having fun or what the fans might appreciate. So Tony Khan is not going to be perfect. Tony Khan has never done this before. He can't be expected to be as good as Vince McMahon or Triple H at booking shit when he's never done this prior to 36 months ago. So he's going to make mistakes and whatnot from a booking perspective, and that's this type of stuff that I'm willing to give Tony Khan a lot of slack on, because they can tighten that stuff up. You can work with that. You can bring people in creatively, listen to the fans, look at the online reaction, and maybe tailor your product to better fix these things that the fans are critiquing or complaining about. But I can't really defend is Tony Khan kind of losing control of his company and his business. He was very upset in that press conference, and rightfully so, kind of taking out and lashing out some of his anger at WWE for running Labor Day weekend 2 shows when nobody's ever ran a show ever on Labor Day. I made a tweet today that in WWE's history and WCW's history and ECW's history, none of those promotions have ever ran a show on, or a pay-per-view on my birthday, because it always falls around Labor Day and wrestling shows generally don't run then. And AEW kind of planted their flag there. That was going to be their thing. There's no law against WWE coming in and running those shows either. But, that pissed Tony Khan off because they're clearly doing it for a reason. So the fans that complain, oh, AEW just does nothing but mention WWE, don't sit here and pretend WWE's ignoring AEW, because they're doing plenty of shit to fuck with them, troll them, whatever they can do to hinder or stunt their growth. And you know what that's called? It's called competition. It's fair play. And that's why I don't care when AEW makes reference to WWE on TV or whenever they take a shot at them. I don't give a fuck. As long as they don't obsess with it, and they don't, because I've seen obsession. WCW and TNA obsessed about WWE. So did ECW. AEW hasn't even come close to approaching any of those promotions in terms of the WWE obsession. They're not delivering cookies to fucking SmackDown, so let's just not get too crazy. So I expect and want the two promotions to send little shots back and forth. That's fun. If you don't want that, you're no fun. And you're not going to be able to keep a woman happy if that type of shit bugs you, I promise you. So let that happen. Allow that. Let the fans enjoy that. That can be fun as long as it doesn't get malicious and stuff. And I don't really think it really has between these two companies ever. So I think that Tony lashing out there was a lot of anger from what happened previously. But if he's that mad at WWE for running pay-per-views on that weekend, why isn't he this pissed off at his wrestlers for fucking up a lot of shit? Backstage, this big scuffle or whatever took place that we're going to talk about in a minute, think about all the people that might have witnessed this or heard about this. Think about if you're a piece of talent whose contract is coming up in less than a year. And a lot of stuff can be affected by this, and you can start seeing pieces, start to go the other way, or like, why would anybody want to sign there? What if you're a free agent? What if Tony Khan and Triple H have both been talking to Bray Wyatt? I mean, unless Tony Khan really sends a lot of money Bray's way, what's the motivation for him to want to sign with them? You know what I mean? If that's the type of shit that goes on there, and that's the type of stuff that can happen, I wouldn't want to be there. You know what I mean? Making sure I can be heard. So this whole situation, I think, is really sad, I guess, in AEW, and I think it's something they better get on top of quickly because they have TV coming up on Wednesday, and based on everything that went on last night after the media scrum or early this morning because it was so late, they have a lot to figure out in a really short amount of time. And it's funny that MJF returning and CM Punk winning the championship last night was only like the fourth and fifth most interesting thing to happen in the entire day. And that's mind-blowing to me. MJF returning to AEW is what should have broken Twitter, not a backstage fight after a media scrum. So I think there's a lot of people at fault here. There's a lot of people that are adversely affecting AEW's business with their behavior. And we'll discuss if CM Punk has a point, or if what he says we take him at face value. Are the Bucks and Kenny really putting these stories out there? We'll talk about all that, but it's drama night here on the Good Mic Work channel, and we're going to be talking about a lot of this. And then when we're done, we'll talk a little bit about Monday Night Raw. We'll run through the results. We'll talk about Braun Strowman, and WWE didn't do anything too crazy on their show tonight because I still think that even with Braun Strowman coming back, that AEW and the AEW drama is going to be dominating the headlines for the next few days. And I'm sure more and more stories will come out. But before we get into this, let me just say hello. Welcome to our Monday night stream. Thank you for being here. I'm going to shout out everybody in the chat in 1 second. If you guys could do me a big favor and smash that thumbs up button for me and consider subscribing if you have not yet already. You can also join and become a family member. We set up the memberships last month, and we're set to start some members-only videos this month. Click the join button below or the link in the description if you want to join our family here. I would be so thankful. But we have got to say hello to some people in the chat. I want to welcome Zelius Ward, brand new channel member. Thank you for becoming my kayfabe brother, my friend. Glad you're here. You're always active in the chat, and thanks for becoming a member as always. I also want to welcome channel members Chaz Medeiros and Population 420, JJ Legg, Zach Palgett, Victor Cologne, George Morris is in the house. Zane G, did I get you already? No, I did not. Zane G is here as well. George Morris, I want to thank you for that $5, dude. Hey, Greg, how are you doing, and how are your cats? Raw, 0 out of 10, Cobra Kai Season 5 Friday. Will you be watching? Mike Barnes is back. Very excited. I got a crazy week this week, which we will be getting into kind of near the end of the podcast. I am very excited for Cobra Kai. I'm not sure with my schedule this time. It's just a bad day for it to come out. So last couple of times I just made myself available and I watched it all in one sitting. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that this time. So I'm going to start watching it as soon as it comes out, but I might only get through like 3 or 4 episodes and then might have to pick it up the next day. So that's another thing that's going to pose a problem for me and the podcast this week is I really want to stay off the internet because I don't want any spoilers, and it's going to be hard to not see shit. So I got to work that out, but I'm very excited for Cobra Kai, George, and Mike Barnes, and that clip of Johnny and Chosen walking into the dojo and about to fuck that kid up, fighting together as a tag team. Chills, my man. Freaking chills. But thanks again for being here. 0 out of 10. I think that's a bit harsh for Raw, but that's what you always say. Damn, I lost my place. I want to knock out just the pleasantries here before we start getting into all the good stuff. Mike Witt is in the house as well. So is Ronnie Matthews. Racing Fisherman. AEW is turning into TNA or WCW. They kind of are. I ain't going to lie. I like AEW, but I'm not going to sit there and pretend that shit's not a mess over there right now because that's just silly. You gotta be real, you know. Nick Musser, good to see you, man. Another channel member in the house. Andy Linnell is here. Always good to see you. And Damon Smith, welcome to the family. Another channel member. We are getting closer to unlocking a bunch more emojis. Probably just a couple of more channel members are left, and I will add some more on there for you guys. Deshaun Robinson is here. Good to see you as well, dude. I appreciate that. Rodrigo, Power Spin, Roderick, David Hosier, Richard Wells, Yessi Hernandez, Chris Pereira, and Chaz Medeiros. Again, I think I got you twice. I might do double shout-outs here. I'm sorry, guys. Curtis Butler, what's up, dude? Yachiro's in the house. Superb Supreme. Happy birthday. By the way, a lot of crazy, juicy stuff happening in wrestling right now. So, yeah, I hope you guys are nestled in because we haven't even really started yet, and we're still doing pleasantries here. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about every single possibility. We're going to recklessly speculate. I even opened up an alcoholic beverage because I need one, man, after all the stuff that's going on. So cheers. And we're just going to talk about everything and what the future could hold and what could happen. It's going to be a hoot. But thank you very much, Superb Supreme, for that. You are the best. Victor Colon, thank you for $5 as well. My opinion, Punk needs to be stripped of the title and suspended or fired. A champion shouldn't be acting like this. Supposedly Punk throwing the first punch. That is definitely a big point that I'm going to get into later, Victor, because if this scuffle is true, and everybody that I trust is reporting that it is, and there certainly were enough witnesses to where I'm not sure you can really work something like this. So this is legit, and the Bucks confronted CM Punk. I don't blame them. They must have been watching or hearing what he was saying. He should have been confronted right after that, because otherwise it just makes you look like a bitch, especially if they feel like CM Punk is in the wrong. They need to confront him about it, and they did, and there was a scuffle, and this is involving 4 current belt holders in the company. CM Punk and the Bucks and Kenny are all wearing championship belts right now. So them getting into a scuffle backstage, if there's punches thrown and a chair hits somebody in the eye, you just suspended Eddie Kingston for supposedly pie-facing Sammy Guevara, and that was a pretty minor scuffle. That was one that was diffused pretty quickly. Eddie Kingston got suspended. He apparently, according to Sammy anyway, had to go through some sort of anger management class or something like that. There were repercussions. There were consequences there. If this backstage fist fight legitimately happened, and there are no consequences, just mere days after you suspended someone for 2 weeks for a pie face, that's going to pose a lot of problems. And that's going to be a monumental double standard. And I don't even know how you're allowed to get away with something like that. If I'm Eddie Kingston, I'm pissed. Now, granted, the fine, I think, was or the money he lost or whatever was donated to charity, but I'm like, I want the money back, my money back that you owe me for suspending me for something that, none of these guys even got in trouble for, and I know it might be like a curtain call situation where you can't punish Scott and Kevin, or you can't punish Sean because he's champion. You might have to find somebody to punish, but how does Tony Khan not hand down any sort of punishments here for this? Because this is terrible behavior, and apparently some of the word around the streets are that there has been more than one scuffle in the company beyond Eddie Kingston and Sammy and beyond this one. And this might be something that's happening from time to time. And this is not what you want. You don't want to go to work worrying about if you got to throw down with somebody. That's fucking crazy. I don't care if you're in pro wrestling or not. And Tony Khan, even in the media scrum, kind of hinted when they asked him about the drama. He said he understands that a lot of wrestlers don't like each other. And he's like, oh well. And I'm like, what do you mean, oh well? You're the boss. Put your foot down, dude. It's time. I know they just had a talent meeting. Apparently that didn't work, because look at what happened just mere days after that. Call another one. And this time, don't play any games. I don't know what Tony Khan can really threaten his talent with. If he threatens to release them, that might be just what they want. So in a lot of ways, they might have Tony Khan by the balls here, because many of them know that if he lets them go, at least the top stars anyway, they can just dance right back over to WWE. So it's, you have to have some sort of accountability when people act like this, regardless of who's in the wrong. And we'll talk about the specifics here. But when you're having an all-out brawl or a rumble backstage, in my mind, everybody's at fault. The Kenny and the Bucks and everybody for throwing punches and getting physical. Maybe they should have waited until Punk had cooled off a bit to confront him about this. But at the same time, they were pissed off and they were mad, and they had every reason to confront him about it right there. I'd get in his face too if that was me, that he was raking over the coals, especially if I truly feel that I did not do anything wrong here. So I'd be pretty mad, because that messes with everybody's livelihood. That's what CM Punk is talking about. They were fucking with the business and that sort of thing. So he's doing it right back to them. I don't know why. I don't know how two wrongs make a right here. And, CM Punk was essentially brought back to really give AEW a boost. And he's been, the source of a lot of drama back there. And CM Punk has already had this reputation. Everybody has known that about him. I was of the hope and opinion that after all these years that maybe he has just calmed down. He's been out of the business and away from that circus for so long that maybe it's just cooled him off and it's chilled him out. Maybe he's a little more mellow now, but he's straight edge. So if that dude's not smoking any ganja or nothing, he's just going to be pent up and angry all the time. So maybe, as somebody said last night, he was ranting so hard. Somebody in the chat said that they thought he was eating a marijuana brownie. Maybe he should start trying that, because it might chill him the fuck out. Just pop a gummy before you go to TV. Everything will be cream cheese. Oh my God, craziness. But yeah, there needs to be accountability there. We will talk about that. Max Pokebro, did I get you? Good to see you. Rarely Even is in the house as well. WWE fan. We've got Ben. Antoine Fair is here. Andrew T. TGA Gaming. Scott Ash. FRGN. EG Slemp. Nafish. Stephen Harris. Connor Delaney. Right on. Trey Williams is back. Bash Star Win, good to see you. Chris Barrera, thank you very much, dude, for that $5. Imagine social media during the Sean Brett drama. No shit. Also, Punk will probably just get a slap on the wrist, which isn't a good look for AEW in my opinion. Yeah, well, let's see what happens to him first. Because when it comes to double standards, another thing we have to remember here, let's not pretend WWE doesn't have these exact same problems or they have in the past. There's been a lot of guys that have had some fishy shit go on behind the scenes and they weren't fired for whatever reason or something was ignored. You have situations like the Usos with their 26 DUIs each and no repercussions for that and a few other random things. Randy Orton famously somehow worked off a wellness policy violation because you were supposed to get terminated after 3, and I believe he had 4. So there is always double standards, and there's going to be some things that aren't going to be fair, but this one is so far out in the open. I don't know how AEW is going to survive not punishing these guys and how bad this is going to make them look, unless they find other ways to punish them. Unless on Dynamite, all 4 of those men lose their championships. CM Punk drops it again right to Maxwell on Dynamite. Maxwell just cashes in his chip right there. Punk loses the belt. He's suspended, for 2 weeks. And then Kenny and the Bucks drop the belts to maybe Hangman and Dark Order, since they had nothing to do with any of this. Poor Hangman. I really like Hangman, and maybe there's some truth to what Punk is saying about him, but he was pretty harsh on him. But I didn't hear about any reports of Hangman being involved in this specific melee. Neither was FTR, who apparently was already gone or something like that. So crazy days in AEW. That's faux show. Yo, Deshaun, thank you very much, dude, for the $9.99. Appreciate that. They're coming. I also lost my spot again. Hey, Greg, happy B-Day. I missed yesterday review due to celebrating your birthday. That's right. We're birthday brothers almost. Happy birthday to you, dude. And I didn't see All Out this morning. Could you imagine hitting shots at a party and hearing about Punk and AEW at 1:30 a.m.? I actually did have that exact thought. Not being at a party having shots, but just being somewhere else, being off, being on vacation like I was in Hawaii last month, or having some sort of other engagement, and you're just trying to get this information and all you are seeing is what's on your phone, and you're like, wait, what now? Like, squeeze me? And you're going through and you're just shitting your pants because all of this crazy info that's being fed to you that doesn't even seem real that you're reading it. So yeah, from an outsider's perspective, someone who didn't watch All Out yesterday, I can imagine that was some pretty crazy shit, dude. But thank you for sharing some of your B-Day love with me. I appreciate that, and it's always good to have you here. Right on. Thank you, Trey. Oh, yeah, you just had a birthday a couple of days ago. Yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, September 4th. Yeah, it's still September 5th here. So in just a few minutes, I'm going to be 45 years old on the East Coast, but I'm going to be 44 years old here. So that's weird, but it's going to happen. So I'm going to be 2 ages. EJ Slemp, thank you, dude, for that $5. I feel bad for AJ. Awesome being at the scrum. That poor kid was probably scared to death of Punk when he was going off on everyone. I'm not sure who AJ Awesome is. It probably was a scary time because Punk was, even when we were watching it last night, when I saw the clip and a few people tagged me in the clip on Twitter. And so we played it here, the audio, and Punk, he was eating a muffin and he had this just super deep voice and blah, blah, blah. And he's just F-bombing Scott Colton. And I'm like, what is going on? So anybody that was in that scrum, I think AEW needs to stop the scrums, man. Everyone is highly critiqued. Everybody talks about Tony Khan's behavior and what he says, and all those scrums do is just ruffle the feathers of the haters. They are already just twisted up and frustrated like they haven't been laid since the goddamn Nixon administration, and they get so mad every time they have one of these things. I don't think these scrums are really helping AEW. I just can them. What do you need them for? What do you need them for? We didn't have any fully loaded media scrums or unforgiven media scrums back in the day. Fuck the scrums. Scrums are stupid. Scrums are dumb. So I think maybe it's time to cut that out. We don't need it. It's pointless. There's lots of other things you can do. Do it the conference call way. Like WWE does it when they do their financial calls or whatever. Maybe do it, in some way like that. I thought the scrums were a cool addition and basically a part of what AEW does. But so far, a lot of them, are becoming more important than the show. And this one definitely was, because that was a 14-match card, 15-match card, and nobody's talking about any of those matches. That tells you something. Zane G, appreciate that $20 from you, my friend. Very kind. I appreciate that. Mike Work. Yeah, but Mike Work, TK can get upset on WWE booking a pay-per-view side by side, but don't companies like WWE book pay-per-views even months, even years in advance, like Rumble, Survivor Series, stuff like that? Sometimes, but they don't book them that long. The only one that gets a good year plus, I think, is WrestleMania. The Rumbles and the SummerSlams and the Survivor Series are usually figured out within a year, but I don't think it's many, many years. So WWE chose to run on Labor Day. AEW's been running there all along, so WWE didn't book Clash at the Castle before AEW existed, if that's, what you're implying. So, yeah, I understand that I'm not even saying that WWE did anything wrong. There is no law that says WWE cannot run a show. Vince McMahon built his empire by breaking unwritten rules and going into, different territories because there's no rule against it. It's a bunch of dudes saying you shouldn't do that. And Vince is like, well, I think I should. So he went in there and did whatever he wanted. That's how WWE was built. So I can't be surprised that this is something that they did. It's something that, it seems right up their alley, so to speak, and sort of in terms of making little plays, not trying to compete head to head, but making little plays to, thwart the business of your competitor. Vince used to do shady shit with the pay-per-view companies back in the day, threatening to take WrestleMania away if they ran Starrcade and stuff like that. So it's the competitiveness and some of the behind the scenes stuff, and the manipulation can be a little frustrating, especially if it needlessly harms a company that I don't like. So, Tony Khan seems to be worried about the buy rates for All Out and thinks that Clash at the Castle could have an effect on that by having not only Clash, but also Worlds Collide earlier on in the day. And then people are expected to pay $50 for All Out. That could be WWE's thinking. Let's put these two shows ahead of theirs and burn the fans out. And then maybe a few of them will decide not to order All Out because they just watched a bunch of wrestling. Maybe that's WWE's thinking. That's all part of the competition. And Tony Khan seemed pretty pissed off about that too when he was, speaking last night at the Scrum. And he says he's not going to take that shit from them. So let's see. That's what I'm saying here. This is like, these companies reacting to each other. Tony Khan could get pissed now and be like, you know what? When is fucking Royal Rumble? Let's run a crazy show head to head or something. He might do something crazy. So we will monitor the situation. But Zane, thank you as always, my friend. Population 420. Thanks for the $2. I think Castle better than All Out. UK crowd amazing. UK crowd was great. I did like All Out last night. It was a lot of matches that didn't bother me. I commended them for getting 11 matches done in only 4 hours. I didn't think the show was too long. It didn't go up beyond 4. It was 4 hours plus an hour of pre-show. That's not bad. That's not bad for a pay-per-view of this size. One that's a staple pay-per-view of the company, and they only run 4 shows a year, or 4 big pay-per-views a year, correct? So it's not like they're doing this every month, and it doesn't become too much. They just have a show where they try to work as much talent onto the card as possible. Greg has no issue with that. But if anybody thinks Clash at the Castle was better than All Out, I can't argue with them, because even though we had that terrible ending and karaoke time sucked, it was a great atmosphere. The crowd was awesome. The matches were good. And all in all, the pay-per-view was hitting on all cylinders until they got to that ending part. So, yeah, I'm cool with that. Celius, appreciate the new channel member shooting me a super chat. Thanks, dude. Happy birthday, good mic work. Been following you for 10 years now. You the man. Well, thank you for that. Tony Khan needs to take control of his employees and keep the drama behind closed doors. That's the bottom line. That is true. I don't know what he can do, and we're going to talk about that later, but, maybe he needs an enforcer. I wish there was somebody out there that he could trust to be at his side for many years to come, like a minimum of the next 20 years, somebody that strikes fear into talent, or somebody that is so well respected and a no-nonsense guy that is just going to be like, I'm going to be the go-between between Tony Khan and all of you. You got a problem, you deal with me. He's giving me full authority to hand down suspensions and fines. I'm in charge. Maybe he puts somebody in charge of that. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but you have to find the right person. It can't just be anybody, and then you get a revolving door of people, and that doesn't do any favors for your morale either. So Tony Khan is in a tight spot, and I don't know the answers to this shit. So And I'm older than Tony Khan, so I've seen a little bit more wrestling than he has. And I don't know the answer, so why should I expect him to? Who knows? Oh, yeah, we're going to be talking about Dominic joining Judgment Day. I'm sorry this is going to be kind of a late Labor Day night. I forgot about that yesterday when we were talking about how late the pay-per-view was. I'm like, today's a holiday. Many people don't even have to work, so stop complaining about being up so late. But tomorrow, many of you might have to go back to work, so I do apologize for this being kind of a long one, most likely tonight. Population 420, thanks you for another buck. I'm going to knock out just a couple more Super Chats, and then we will cap them, and I'll come back to the Super Chats and get those done after we talk some AEW drama. I also want to thank WWE Fan 22 for chiming in with the $10. Thank you very much. There may be a lack of respect on both sides. I think Tony needs to get all parties together and sit them down, talk this out like professionals. Maybe have Jericho be on that conversation. I did see the clip today too. Did you guys see of the scrum where Jericho got done talking and then he was leaving? And I think he said something to Tony Khan, like some shit went down or whatever. I think Jericho was the one that told him that, yo, things are happening back there. But yeah, there definitely needs to be a sit down. There needs to be Tony Khan, laying down the law to these guys. At the end of the day, he is the boss. At the end of the day, he has more money than God. And, he should be respected. And I feel like when the talent feels like they have the freedom to say this type of stuff, and completely go off on other members of the company, even if they are right, to be that unprofessional and to do that publicly, and for Tony Khan to be okay with that does make him look weak, very much so. So I hope that these are things that Tony can learn from, and AEW can turn the corner before things get too bad. But he's got to make people scared of him, and he doesn't have the presence that Vince McMahon does, and that's another thing we talked about. Nobody would ever pull this shit with Vince, and that's very true. Like Vince or not, and he's not my favorite person, but nobody would ever do this at a press conference with him sitting right there. Bruce Pritchard is a fucking moron. Kevin Dunn, I hate his dumb, ugly face. He's a brainless fuck, or whatever the hell Punk was saying about Hangman Page. Nobody would ever do that, even if it was true. Even if those things were true, nobody would ever dare say that with Vince McMahon sitting right next to them. Could you imagine Vince's response? Excuse me? You want to get fired, son? I don't care if you're my champion or not. He wouldn't do that. So Tony Khan, I'm a boss. I was a general manager for many, many years in restaurants. I'm a manager, and a consultant where I am now. And I do know what it's like to be able to be firm. If you're in any sort of authority position, many of you in the chat probably are too, no matter where you work, doesn't matter on what level, whether you're, making $1 million a year, or whether you're, somewhere in the middle class or whatever your job is, if you have people under you, you have to balance, being a good boss by, with not being a pushover and not being able to be manipulated in any way. People have to respect you. It's a respect thing. And Tony Khan does not seem like he has the respect of his roster right now if things like this are happening. So you don't have to be a ruthless tyrant. You don't have to be crazy. You don't have to be a complete asshole. I hate bosses that think they have to be that way. But I do think there's a bonus, or there's an in-between there. And I think that you have to balance being that boss with, being a good person and being sympathetic and being able to be there for your talent, your employees, so they're comfortable with you, comfortable working with you, but you still have to have their respect to where they know you can't be crossed. And if you say something, can't happen, they don't do it anyway, that type of stuff. There's a lot of things I think that Tony Khan himself has got to get a handle on. And right now he seems to be losing his grip on a lot, but that's what we'll be talking about. AJ Slemp, thanks for the $2 from you. AJ Awesome and his 11-year-old 11-year-old YouTuber at every scrum. Poor kid, he's 11. We've been doing YouTube longer than this fucker's been alive. Oh shit, yeah. I hope he was okay there. I hope he wasn't traumatized for life. Thinking about you, AJ. Chris Ludecki, appreciate $5 from you. If the post-show scrum was real, I just hope they don't try to overdo this on every post-show scrum now and start angles with work shoots, etc. I know this does not seem, I've been watching wrestling a long time. It's not hard for me to notice what's a work and what's not, and none of this at all screams work to me. If it is, it's going to be one of the best pulled off ones of all time, because Punk was way too genuine, way too mad. The only thing that would basically tell me this was a work is if CM Punk is in the ring on Monday and he gets nailed from behind by a guy in a hood, and then he takes off the hood to reveal it's Colt Cabana. Or if if MJF turned out to be Colt Cabana or something like that, imagine that pop. And, if this was all done just to start an angle there, but no, I don't believe so. Punk was pretty clear in what he said and how he spoke, and you just can't fake that level of anger and passion and rage that Punk seemed to have and contempt for Colt Cabana and some of the things he said. So, I never thought the Cody stuff was a work. I never thought the MJF stuff was a work. That was definitely a thing that happened before Double or Nothing. I never thought the Brock Lesnar leaving WWE SmackDown was a work. We knew that happened. And for people that just insist and want to, it's like people just learned the word work yesterday. Oh, all these marks getting worked. When has that ever been true? Whenever some moron on Twitter says all these marks are getting worked, it's usually about a situation that's not a work. So maybe you've got it wrong. I'm not saying you are, Chris. I'm just saying people in general. With this, I would love, and as a matter of fact, Chris, I would actually love for this to be a work because that would be the best case scenario. If it was a work, I'd be like, thank God these guys don't want to kill each other. Maybe Tony Khan has got a better grip on his locker room than we think. But none, it would just be hard to work this. It's too genuine. Wrestlers are notoriously horrible actors, and it's just not ever hard for any of us, really, when you think about it, to recognize a work. And if anybody's looking at this and saying, oh, this is a total work, then I don't know what the hell you're watching. But if it is a work, yeah, I wouldn't want, they might start using this as a way to start angles. I don't necessarily have a huge problem with that. They do that in New Japan. So having, post-match scrums or interviews or press conferences or whatnot can be a good tool to use to start angles or finish angles or whatever. I don't have any issue with that, really. But the nature of this one is so crazy that it's just much more serious, if it's just, two guys after a match and they get into it, or maybe that's how you kick off a new feud. I don't have a problem with them using that as a tool sometimes, but yeah, doing it all the time, it'll get old just like everything does. Right, exactly, EJ. Because if Tony Khan wanted to make some sort of reactionary decision and say, oh, I'm going to run head-to-head with WWE or run on the same weekend as WWE, that's not going to do them any favors either. So he's got to keep his emotions in check, because Vern Gagne did that. I think Vern Gagne, once Vince started coming into Minneapolis, I think he might have gone to New York a couple times, and he didn't do well there. So I don't think they should be making any decisions based off anger towards WWE. Be a little more calculating than that. Anger is for amateurs. I've said that for years. If you're yelling and screaming, I can easily beat you, because I'm just cooler headed, be more patient, in your revenge, so to speak. Be a little bit more calculating. You ever watch those Ocean's 11 movies? Somebody crosses one of them, they pay him back for it like 2 years later. It takes forever for them to concoct, this big revenge scheme, all the while acting like nothing's going on. I would just be a little bit more mindful and put a little bit more thought into how I want to react or retaliate to WWE. And, don't come off too angry or mad, because in my mind that shows weakness, and don't do that. Anger is stupid. So Tony Khan didn't make himself look too good when he's like, "I'm gonna fucking take this shit anymore." I'm like, okay, it's cool to say that, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, Tony Khan? I'm with you. I don't blame you for being pissed. The WWE runs a show on a weekend they never have before. Run two shows on a weekend they never have in the company's 60-year history. All of a sudden they're doing it now because that's when you run. I get why you're pissed. I don't blame you for being pissed. But when you say you're not going to take it, what are you going to do? You can't sue them. There's nothing there. They're not breaking any laws here. So when you say you're not going to take it, what does that mean? To me, that implies he intends on some sort of retaliation, and I just don't know how good of an idea that is. Even, maybe he just wants to take away a little bit of business, or one of their other pay-per-views. He might be looking to do that, put a Ring of Honor show on a Saturday prior to a WWE pay-per-view or something like that. Maybe that's something he's going to be looking to do. I don't know, but he said he's not going to take it anymore. So we'll see what that means. I have no idea. I know I might have a couple more. I think I might have them all there, and I apologize if I missed anybody. We will get back to these, and thanks again to everyone who is here tonight for the WWE Raw review, and of course, the big discussion on the AEW drama going on backstage right now. Behind the scenes, it's crazy. We'll start getting into that now, and then I will, we'll go back and interact with the chat later on. But if you guys could also hit that thumbs up button for me, try to get us up to 100 likes here before we get into the AEW stuff, I would appreciate it. But what we're going to talk about here is basically the latest on what went on last night. A lot of this I have already spoke about as we've been talking here for the past hour. But as you all know, last night after All Out, CM Punk in the media scrum sitting next to Tony Khan gets, I suppose, asked a question about Colt Cabana, but none of the video, all the videos pick up with him just saying, "Are you Scott Colton's friend?" or something like that. So it almost sounded like CM Punk brought this up on his own, but I think it was a reporter asking about him. And Punk had a very harsh reaction to that fan on Dynamite a couple weeks ago who chanted Colt Cabana, and he called him a fat ass or something like that. He's very angry about Colt Cabana, and when CM Punk came in, that was one of the first questions we had. I was dying to know. And I was hopeful that maybe the two of them have patched things up, because I didn't really know the true nature of their lawsuit. I don't know what one was suing for. I had no idea. I know it was stemming from their lawsuit with the WWE that they were both involved in, and there was some sort of falling out there, and Colt Cabana was, I think, left to pay for a lot of his own stuff or whatever, but Punk was claiming that he was paying all Colt Cabana's bills. So I don't know the nature of their beef or what the hell happened there. But Punk certainly has not gotten over this. So if there was any, and that doesn't surprise me. I mean, even in his documentary, I remember him saying that he hadn't talked to his brother in 12 years, and that was 8 years ago. So I don't know if, when Punk holds a grudge, he holds a fucking grudge. So if we were thinking that the two of them have patched things up and all is good, that is clearly not the case and never was the case. And Punk made it very clear in his comments about Colt Cabana that he does not give a shit about him. He gives fuck all about Colt Cabana, has nothing to do with him. And he was very mad at the irresponsible AEW EVPs, as he calls it, for putting out stories to their internet friends like Alvarez, who I think was in the building. I think so was Meltzer. He didn't mention Sean Ross Sapp or Fightful by name, but they did report some things as well in terms of Punk's frustration, detailing the time he almost walked out or whatever. So he, expressed some frustration with that, and basically said that they were feeding bullshit stories and lies to these websites to make him look bad when he's the face of the company and he's the top baby face in the company. This affects business, and they're too stupid to realize this, and they couldn't manage a target. It was his exact words there. So in that regard, and that's the hard thing about when you're trying to unpack all this, you have to look at it from Punk's perspective. So if I'm saying something, I'm not saying this is the way I feel. I'm just trying to analyze the way Punk feels. So the way Punk feels is that he was completely done wrong by Colt Cabana. He had every right to countersue him the way they did. And as he said in the scrum, he's a grown-ass man, and he should not have to explain to anyone why he has chosen to not be friends with someone. And that's something that I agree totally with CM Punk on. Nobody should have to explain that. It's nobody's fucking business. So he's getting tired, endless questions about this. He's reading a lot of stuff online, so he's already probably gone into this pissed off. And he feels that, Scott Colton is a piece of shit for the various reasons that he pointed out. Talked about the bank account with his mom, talked about all these emails that he had saved because he was paying all Cabana's bills, and then Cabana said, "Oh, it's okay, we can go our separate ways, you don't have to pay anymore." I don't even know what that means. When CM Punk says he's paying all his bills, what bills? His phone bill? What bills are you paying? Maybe it's the legal bills he's talking about regarding the WWE lawsuit. That's probably it. But I didn't know if he was supporting Colt Cabana or what, but he talks about how Cabana says, "You don't have to pay anymore, and I'll get my own lawyers, and we'll go our separate ways." And he has not come anywhere close to repairing his relationship with Colt Cabana, but he said that he didn't care where Colt Cabana worked. He's so done with Colt Cabana that he doesn't care if he works in AEW or not. So he feels that the Bucks and Kenny might have planted stories out there that CM Punk got Colt Cabana, or was trying to get Colt Cabana let go, or got him regulated to the Ring of Honor roster or whatever, and Punk is claiming he had nothing to do with that because he doesn't give a shit. I don't care where he works, don't care where he eats, don't care where he sleeps, does not care at all what he does. So if that's true and Punk is not lying about that, and Punk honestly has not done anything to try to harm Colt Cabana, then he's right about that, because these guys should be smarter. They're the founding fathers of AEW. They're executives in the company. They are now businessmen, like it or not, and they should understand that if you try to harm the reputation of your babyface champion online, that can affect the babyface's drawing power and your overall business, and trickles down and can affect everybody's money. And that is true. That is true. So, you have to be a little bit more mindful of that. But then you have to ask yourselves, if that's true, why did the Bucks and Kenny do it? Why would they blatantly make up the lie? Maybe it's because CM Punk is not liked in the locker room, or maybe these guys play different games than CM Punk does. They are two kind of different generations there. Chicago is much different than Rancho Cucamonga, California, I can tell you now. Rancho's not far from here, and they're different generations, live different lives, probably have different philosophies. And, we talked about that when Punk came in. Is he going to be able to coexist with the personalities there? We brought up Cody, when we did bring up the Bucks, because the Bucks, I like the Bucks, but they got punchable faces. I'm not going to lie, but I do like them as a tag team, and I have no problem with them as people. So listening to Punk's comments here from his perspective, he wants nothing to do with Colt. He feels that the Elite spread rumors about him to get the fans to hate him, which in turn harmed the business that they were trying to do. He said the same thing about Hangman Page, that Hangman Page going into business for himself in whatever promo he was referencing back in May jeopardized their main event. So I don't know what he meant by that, by jeopardizing the amount of money they would draw, or perhaps Punk not showing up to the show, meaning that the match might not even take place. And Punk said that he was upset, number one, that he had to mention and even say Scott Colton's name, and he was upset that he had to stoop, as he said, to Hangman Page's level and go out and give him a receipt on Dynamite when he called him out for the title rematch. So Punk had a lot to say. He was animated. He was bloody. He had a deep voice. He was deep-throating a muffin. Tony Khan sat there the whole time during these rants. I don't know what he had to be thinking in his head. If he's the boss he needed to be, he needs to put his hand on the mic and be like, excuse us for 1 minute. Get the fuck over here, and just pull Punk aside and be like, you need to knock this shit off right now, or you're done with the scrum. Cut the shit. Stop it. You're making us look terrible. And then Punk, he might be like, oh okay, my boss has never said that to me before. Okay, all right, right on. I'll just talk about my foot or whatever. That's what Tony Khan should have done. He should have grabbed him by his hair and said, what the hell are you saying, dude? Like, chill. Well, say this to me and the Bucks and Kenny backstage in 10 minutes. Don't say this in front of these reporters that's going to be on every bald-headed, goateed, 45-year-old YouTuber is going to be talking about this on their channel. It's crazy. And I can't believe that CM Punk to be lecturing everyone on business feels like this is something that's going to help business. I mean, I guess a lot of people are going to tune in to Dynamite on Wednesday, that's for sure. But I don't think any of this was done to boost any ratings. This is making none of this. That's why if anybody thinks this is a work, first of all, it's not, because we go through this every time. But if that's true, why would AEW purposely make themselves look like fools? WWE, same thing with the screw job. Screw job's a work. I'm like, well, WWE looked bad in that. Bad. Sure, it got Vince over as a pretty big heel, and things worked out really well for WWE, but I think that was coincidence. Could have easily gone the other direction. So I don't think that's really, a good enough reason either. But for Punk to lecture about all that stuff, about how things can affect business, and then you do all that, I think is kind of irresponsible. But it was also a lot of frustration boiling over. Clearly, he's got Tony Khan in his back pocket, because despite all these issues that CM Punk seems to have, despite the toxicity that he brings through that locker room. They still put him over last night, and he had the big hometown babyface moment against Moxley winning the AEW title, but that's all an afterthought now. That's an afterthought. MJF is an afterthought. Everything, that happened last night on the show is pretty much an afterthought. Everything is about this. And everything is about what CM Punk said and what happened afterwards. So after Punk was done ranting and raving about everything, he packed up the rest of his muffin and he left. We had a couple of people join the scrum. I think Swerve and Keith Lee sat down in the muffin crumbs. And at one point, a security guard bolted out of the scrum. And apparently that was when the shit was going down behind the scenes. And that was what came out earlier today. The big backstage fight that apparently happened right after CM Punk made these comments. You can't be surprised by that. If I'm any of these guys, I'm again not getting punked out by CM Punk like that. You know, this dude is 0 for life in MMA. I'm sure there's somebody back there that could take him. Nobody should be scared of him like Brock Lesnar. Get in his face. He shouldn't be saying that stuff to you, especially if you truly believe in your heart that you haven't done anything wrong, because who knows who's at fault here. I think there's a lot of people at fault, especially after we're going to talk about this backstage fight. But if Kenny and the Bucks really did these things, then Punk is right. You know, he just really delivers his message in a very, very abrasive way. But if there was some way to investigate this stuff and, you know, maybe one of these journalists comes out and says, yeah, they told me these things, or they get outed in some way, or any of this is proven, then CM Punk is right to be pissed. He's absolutely right to be pissed. But you also have to take into account CM Punk's previous reputation, and he is this way. He rubs everybody the wrong way. Very few people in the wrestling business can stomach him, and he ends relationships over the pettiest of things. And like I said, I don't have any idea what caused the initial rift between Colt Cabana and him and what exactly did them in. But it must have been a lot if Colt Cabana was simply just, the guy that hosted the podcast and allowed CM Punk and gave Punk the platform to air out his grievances, and then WWE sued them, and now Colt Cabana is a part of this. You know, CM Punk should pay his fucking bills for that, because it was Punk's comments that triggered the lawsuit. Colt Cabana was just there. So if the breakup came because of that some way, then I don't know what that story even is. But whatever caused them to split with each other, it must have been pretty bad, because if I was CM Punk, and I'm not, and we don't think the same, but if I'm CM Punk, I would have felt responsible for Colt Cabana. I said, I got this guy in a lot of trouble. He's now, being sued, and he doesn't have the money that I have to take care of this. I feel obligated to, make sure that I cover these legal bills for the both of us, since it was my words that caused all this. That's just my take on it, but I could be wrong and I could have the context wrong. But if it's something like that, then whatever happened must have been bad for, that feeling of obligation or guilt or whatever to go away. So what happened? What did, Cabana bang AJ? I know that didn't happen. That's rude. But what happened there? And Punk is right. It is none of our business, and I've always felt that way. I've only been curious about their relationship. I'm wondering if they can coexist behind the scenes, and I always wondered about it, but I didn't really need to know the intricate details of their relationship. I was just curious where they stand. Do they hate each other or not? Turns out they hate each other. But above that, excuse me, other than that, though, the rest of it is really none of my business, none of any of your business. But when CM Punk talks about it in such a harsh way, in such a public setting, well, guess what? It's our business now. And we want to know, and we want answers to these things. And a lot of the stuff is, kicked up a lot of drama, and we're curious. So getting back to the backstage fight, security guard runs away. Jericho even mentions to Tony Khan that something went down. You could kind of see him whispering something to TK. And apparently when CM Punk got back there, he was confronted by the Elite, Kenny and the Bucks, and there were some punches thrown. A chair was thrown and hit Matt Jackson apparently and knocked him out by one account. Ace Steel, there's a report that he bit Kenny Omega, so I don't know how true that is, but he Mike Tyson Omega, and there were multiple punches thrown according to the reports. Now, I want to read you the latest report that came out earlier, just about an hour or so ago, from Fightful Select that's going to detail the latest on the fight. Now, there's been a million updates on this whole situation all day, but this is the latest information we have, and it's going to be the only article I'm going to read to you. Otherwise, we're just going to freestyle most of this. But it has a lot of information in it, so I'm going to read it to you after I drink this delicious beer. So this is courtesy of Fightful Select. An hour ago, more on Ace Steel, CM Punk, Young Bucks, Kenny Omega fight. We've learned more about the AEW brawl after All Out. PW Insider has reported that after the scrum, Punk returned to his he returned to his locker room. Just as after the scrum, he returned to his locker room where Young Bucks and Kenny Omega confronted him. Okay, Punk. We can confirm that Punk and Young Bucks had a physical altercation, but haven't heard the same for Omega. Instead, Omega and Ace Steel were said to have had one, as mentioned earlier. We're told that, quote, Ace Steel cracked Nick Jackson with a chair, end quote, with another person saying they think he's lucky to not be in jail. Wow. Several sources in AEW that we spoke with said that they believe Ace Steel will not be back in the company after this incident. That's good. PW Insider had also noted Steele's wife was said to have been around caring for Punk's dog. That's right, CM Punk's dog was there too. The story of Nick Jackson having a black eye came from Steele throwing a chair at him. Security was called, and there were, quote, many people trying to break everything up. One person said it was a situation of them, quote, trying to save lives, end quote. That's gnarly. If it's getting to the point where if somebody doesn't step in, somebody's going to get seriously hurt or killed. There's no excuse for that. It's 2022. This is not 1978 Puerto Rico. This is 2022. America. This is not what happens in pro wrestling locker rooms in this day and age. Horseshit. Absolute horseshit. There should be accountability for all these fuckers when I read this. Pisses me off. Anyway, let's return. Article goes on to say there was an incredible amount of heat on Ace Steel after the situation, with one person saying they weren't sure what happened, but that, quote, it couldn't have possibly escalated to hitting someone with a chair. Very true. Goes on to say the argument continued with a lot of cursing and shouting until the Elite left the arena. We've heard from people who are siding with both, saying that Punk's comments prompted the situation, and others saying the Elite shouldn't have approached Punk while he was clearly pissed off. I just mentioned that earlier. However, the large majority seem to think that Punk should have expected to have been approached about it, and I said that as well. You cannot say that about other men and expect another man to not get in your face about it. PW Insider noted how FTR left the building by then. They posted on Twitter that they were bonding with others in the locker room over a bottle of Woodford Reserve. Decent stuff. Gifted by Strong Styles Cher Delaware. Oh, Cher gave him that? That's cool. It would seem like they, as well as many others in the locker room who had long left, would have likely not been in any condition to have gang wars situation unfold. That's pretty funny. Chris Jericho was credited by several that we spoke to for stepping up even more so in a leadership role over the past couple of weeks. He's a good guy to be doing that, to be honest with you. Multiple sources cited his calm demeanor at the scrum in the middle of all the wildness that was going on, and him speaking at the AEW talent meeting recently. For those asking, we've not heard of any cameras catching things. Yeah, I was about to say there's cameras everywhere else. Did anybody get any film of this? I don't know if there was a new Being the Elite. I think they usually drop on Mondays or something, don't they? So, or maybe it's Mondays. I forgot. Or after a show. But this is crazy. And Chris Jericho, we talked about a minute ago, Tony Khan putting someone in charge. Maybe Jericho is somebody that could step into and be a Triple H type of guy. Because Jericho does have a respect as a veteran. He does have some of that January 6th stuff going on, so there's always that. But, he's a veteran. He's been there from the start. He was their first ever champion, and maybe he could help Tony Khan, and maybe Tony Khan can give Jericho a position of authority or something. Although Jericho's been on the roster for a long time, so naturally you can't even help it. You're going to develop people that you like more than others. So if he is in sort of any position of power, you're always going to have, issues of favoritism, and that seems to be Tony Khan's whole issue right now. But, maybe somebody in the future, Jericho stepping up as a 30-plus year veteran. He is a guy that should be a veteran in that locker room. Absolutely. Moxley should be as well. And, Punk and Jericho, they've never been best friends either. They're two personalities that I could easily see clashing, and I think they kind of did in the past, even though they have worked really good programs together. But I think with AEW, when you have a situation like what we're in the middle of watching right now, it can't get any worse. You know what I mean? I think that's where WWE found themselves. I mean, it was getting to the point in WWE where it could not get any worse. They can't give us any shittier of a product than they were. So I was like, well, at least they got nowhere to go but up. So maybe in AEW, it's the same way. Maybe all of this stuff will lead to cooler heads prevailing and these guys getting in a room and saying, look, we look like idiots. Look at the way the wrestling world is talking about us. Look at the credibility that we have completely destroyed for Tony Khan, and nobody's going to take him seriously as a boss. The people watching don't take him seriously. The talent is not going to take him seriously. We've put him in a position with our quarrel where he's got to, pick sides or whatever. But CM Punk is not the type of guy that really just has a cooler head and lets shit go. And I just don't think with him involved in this, if you take Punk out of the equation and you put somebody else in, like if it was Moxley that had all these problems or something, then maybe cooler heads could prevail and everybody could agree to work together for the good of the company. But CM Punk has got a lot of rage, man. That's why, man, I recommend him checking out Kevin Nash's new cannabis business or something. Punk, I know I would never encourage somebody to not be straight edge, but in this case, I think it would really help him. He's just so fucking pissed all the time. And like I said, he might be in the right here. And I'm sure there are members of the AEW locker room that side with both. And I'm sure there are plenty of members of the AEW locker room who like both. You could have some people in the Punk camp and some people in the Elite camp, and then you could also have the ones that really do like both people, and they don't really have a dog in the fight. They just want them to work it out, and I think that's kind of where I stand. If everything that Punk said somehow gets substantiated or gets proven in any way, or we get any confirmation that anything that he said about the Bucks and the Elite and their behavior and what they did, if that turns out to be true and not maybe just a misunderstanding, or maybe it was their reaction to the way Punk came in, because Punk already has a bad locker room reputation, and so maybe he, a lot of wrestlers didn't like to see that, because another mistake Tony Khan made in the past is, saying that AEW exists because of CM Punk and he's the greatest thing ever. And there was probably a lot of talent there that say, hey, we did a lot to build this company up before Punk got here. To act like he's the only one carrying this around, number one, is going to inflate his ego to shit. And it's going to crap on a lot of the talent here that's been really busting their ass for you. And that's probably not the right thing to say. And that's why I said Tony Khan is going to go through these growing pains. He's going to do things and say things that you probably won't catch him saying again, because he's going to learn from this stuff. Everybody has this same type of track through life. You learn by the dumb shit you do, but luckily for us, all of our shit isn't on camera, so, or is so visible to the public. So these are things that he's just going to have to get better on and stuff. But he doesn't look like a strong boss. He doesn't look like somebody who's got his handle on things. And with Punk being a part of this, he's not somebody that can just go home, chill out, come back on Wednesday with a fresher mind, and he's willing to sit down and talk about this. He's always mad all the time. Dude took 8 years off, came back, beat everybody he faced, and won the title twice in 2 months, and is still pissed. And he claims it's because of business. He claims it's because he doesn't like the high school behavior, and I get that. It does sound, if what Punk is saying is true, then he got mean girled. Like the Elite, the clique was like, let's spread rumors about him, okay? And we'll just tell the media that he's selfish and he's an asshole or whatever. And he got Colt Cabana fired. And they'll plant these little stories out there in this little catty way to harm his reputation, not fully understanding by doing that, you're essentially harming the business of Tony Khan, the business of AEW, and, the money that all of your coworkers are making, because not everybody makes the kind of money you guys do, and some of these lower card workers are counting on these big houses. So, that's the type of stuff that, if any of this is true, then CM Punk is right. But that CM Punk is only right in the context of everything that he's saying is 100% factual. And there's no way of really knowing that. So I'm only speaking from Punk's perspective. Speaking from the Bucks and the Elite's perspective, that they probably weren't thrilled about Punk coming in because he is going to garner a lot of attention. And even though they're executives who should want AEW to grow and expand as a whole, you can't take the human out of somebody. So maybe they did see CM Punk as a threat. Sure, he might be good for AEW, but he could be a threat to us in terms of, the attention we get from, the internet fans and things like that. And they also know his reputation. They don't really maybe perhaps like him as a person. CM Punk is, he's, I don't know, Chicago straight edge atheist guy, and they're Christians. I don't know. I just think maybe they just clash in some way or whatever, and they just don't naturally like each other. They probably wouldn't be friends in a normal setting. But I think the Bucks are cool. They're funny dudes. I think they're nice enough from what I've seen or what I've met. But Punk is just always carried this reputation with him. And maybe some of this new generation stuff rubs Punk the wrong way. Another thing he brought up in the scrum is talking about Hangman, about how the younger talent doesn't want to seek out help of the veterans. And he says that's fucking stupid. And how dumb can you be to have all this knowledge at your disposal and not put it to any use? And that was probably in reference to an interview that Hangman did, where he said he doesn't often seek out the help of legends or of veterans. And I don't have anything wrong with that. Sure, I mean, I would be picking the brain of people if I was, if I had veterans around me. But Hangman Page is an awfully nice guy from what I've always seen. And, he might be the type of guy that just doesn't want to bother people. I'm not going to text this guy and ask him a question in the middle of the day. He might be walking his dog or, being at home, or maybe he just doesn't want to bother people, or maybe he just doesn't, really, enjoy too many social situations. There could be a lot of reasons for it other than just straight disrespect to the veterans. I don't believe that for a second. So Punk being mad that Hangman doesn't come to him for advice is a stupid thing to be mad about. Punk might be right to be mad about other things, but that is specifically stupid. Who cares? Why do you care? What the fuck? Let people do whatever they want. And if talking to veterans is really the one thing that can help you get over the hump, then I guess Hangman Page just won't get over that hump, and he'll learn his lesson, won't he? But you should let him make that decision, and it should be nobody else's but his. So I can see young bucks being Southern California people, probably going to a Southern California high school and being around Southern California society. I can totally see them mean girling Punk and spreading rumors about him in a very immature manner. And when you're doing that with an executive position in the company, then that is extremely irresponsible. It's dumb, it's immature, and it does potentially cost the company money when you can affect the reputation of a babyface that you're building the company around, at least at the moment. Those are all very, very stupid moves from an executive standpoint. So if any of that happened, Punk is right. But he could have it all wrong. Hopefully this is a whole one big misunderstanding, or maybe Punk is just reading the reports online, and that's the conclusion that he's coming to, is that Kenny and the Bucks must have fed that information to them, because none of that is true, and that automatically means Kenny is lying. And he could just mean whoever wrote the article was just kind of freestyling, or maybe doing a little speculating or editorializing or whatever on what might happen. And he took that, or maybe he read something in between the lines there that clued him into this specifically being because of the elite spreading these rumors. So Punk seems to be mad at everybody, right now, the entire elite core. You have to wonder what would be going on there if Cody was still there. I mean, remember back when he left, how many people were saying, and this is coming from a huge AEW fan, I thought these people were crazy when they were like, Cody Rhodes has made the biggest mistake of his life. He's going to immediately be Stardust again, and he's going to be regulated to catering. Why would he ever leave AEW? And I remember being shocked as hell, but also I'm like, that's an awfully big decision to make for Cody to make right now at this time when WWE is doing so poorly and AEW is doing so well. This is a really shocking decision, but we all knew there had to be more to this. And, maybe Cody already saw this happening. CM Punk had already been there for a few months. and maybe he could see, things changing in the locker room or unraveling, and he just wanted to get out of there before things boiled over. He looks like a smart as hell dude now, doesn't he, for making that call? I didn't judge him at all. I was just, I'm fine with wherever Cody wants to work. AEW, great. WWE, great. Wherever you want to be, Cody, I'm cool with it. So he chose WWE, whatever. I'm fine with him being there. I thought he had a great return at WrestleMania, and that's when fans started saying, oh, okay, maybe this might work. Then he worked the Seth program, and then he had the injury in the Hell in the Cell, and now he's a made man. And then by the grace of whatever, he gets injured. Not that that's a good thing, but he gets injured right when Vince McMahon is leaving, meaning that he gets to sit back and let all of the dust settle, let everything change, regime change, WWE figure out their new routine and how they're going to do things and get into that system and get rolling for a few months. Then he's healthy and he comes back into a well-oiled machine. Cody's lucky, man. He really, really is. And I just think of that picture of him smoking the cigar. I mean, that's got to be what he's doing right now. So I'm sure he's not happy for his friends in AEW that this is happening. I'm not happy about this as an AEW fan that this is happening, because this is not the type of shit that you want. AEW, one of the things I've praised them for the most is giving us really, really good pro wrestling TV shows. Where, they really seem to, sure, they got some holes in their booking and then some stories that I don't love, but overall, they at least have their planning down. They know where they're taking you for the next couple of weeks. They advertise the entire next week's show before they go off the air. They give you unique matches. They give you different matches. The set doesn't always look the same. The venues are a little bit unique because they're not running the big basketball stadiums every week, and they're running smaller ones, which gives the arenas and the shows a different kind of unique vibe from week to week. Sometimes they add a tagline, like Fighter Fest and all that shit. And when it comes to pro wrestling, that's literally the exact opposite of what WWE was giving me, and that's what I was looking for as a fan, is something alternative to the redundant nonsense in WWE, because I like WWE, but I can't take 7 hours of WWE a week. I want something else because I do like wrestling, and I would like something else for my brain to look at. It needs an alternative. Now it's here. I'm happy it's here, and I don't want it to go anywhere, because so far, aside from some of the problems in the women's division and, a couple of angles that have fallen flat, overall, I still think AEW has done better than most people would think after only being around for 3 years with their roster and the roster that they've built and the TV that they've been able to produce. But they have hit a major obstacle here and a big speed bump, and they have ran into a literal shitstorm of drama, and it's going to be really crazy to see how this plays out. A couple things I think we need to keep our eye on this week as it relates to this is, number one, repercussions. Sounds like this backstage fight has been all but confirmed and corroborated by everybody. It happened. So it's not like it might have happened or anything like that. Wrestlers and staff there and everybody who's communicating is saying, no, this did happen. So we need to see if there's repercussions. If there is not, and we get through Dynamite and CM Punk and the Bucks and Kenny all appear on the show and they're doing stuff and nobody loses their titles, what does that mean? Does that mean there's a giant elephant-sized double standard in this company that you're going to suspend Eddie Kingston for 2 weeks for pie-facing somebody, but yet these guys get off scot-free? I understand that you're in a difficult position because they're all title holders and they're all you got your champion and your executives. It's the same reason why Vince McMahon couldn't punish Shawn Michaels after the curtain call. It's the exact same reason. So Tony Khan has found himself in that situation. So what can he do? He can't punish them. So he might have to do other things. He might have to punish them in other ways, because one thing I want the fans to understand, because they won't, is that there are other ways to punish you other than just removing you from TV. Granted, that's the best way, but you are in a tough spot when CM Punk is your champion and you plan on running with him now, and MJF, and the Bucks and Kenny have just started the Trios championship run. So unless you hotshot more stuff on Wednesday and you have Kenny and the Bucks drop their titles and MJF beat Punk for the title, if you don't do that on Wednesday and you just keep rolling with your product and we don't hear of any repercussions, or we don't visibly see any suspensions, that is going to piss off the fans. But like I said, there could be other ways to punish someone. You could fine these guys. You could give them one crazy ultimatum, double secret probation warning. that says, hey, I will indefinitely suspend you, not fire you. I will indefinitely suspend you without pay for the remainder of your contracts if you do this again. I don't even know if you can do that. I don't even know if that's fucking legal. But, or I can just suspend you without pay for 6 months. Something hard, some major consequence if anything like this happens again, or if they can't put this stuff behind them. But, that doesn't always work. We have a pretty good policy at my place. We don't have, at my restaurant, we don't have too many employee beefs. There's a few, but none too bad. And if anything ever has gotten out of line, I've been there 12 years. We haven't had anything that bad ever. Nobody's ever wanted to fight or anything, but the few disagreements we've had, our rule is you're adults, figure it out, or you're both fired. Do not care who's at fault. Don't care who started it. Don't fucking care. You're 31, you're 33, figure it out. I ain't your mama. So that's our policy, and it works. It works because you can't, you have to rely on each other, though. That's the problem. So if Tony Khan does have a come to Jesus meeting with these guys and say, all you fuckers better get your shit together or I'm going to can all your dumb butts, the Bucks and Kenny still have to rely on CM Punk to cooperate with that. If Punk's still going to be super angry and abrasive and get pissed at them at every, turn, then nothing is resolved, which means the Bucks could get in trouble because Punk is just not cooperating. Who knows? But I wouldn't want to be in Tony Khan's position. I wouldn't want to even work in AEW right now and go to TV and just I'd hide in the bathroom like Thunder Rosa. I just pick up a sandwich from Jersey Mike's and, make sure my phone's charged and I got some good shows on my iPod or something, or my iPod, my VCR or my phone, and find a broom closet, shut myself in there, lock the door, and wait for my match. I wouldn't even want to be around any of this shit. It's just too stupid, and especially when all these people are grown men. They are not in the 11th grade. They are in their 30s, many of them in their 40s, and doing stuff like this is just childish, and I think they all need to get it together. So whoever's at fault, I think, needs to stand up and own up to it and take responsibility for it. Maybe even coming forward and accepting a punishment on everyone's behalf if it takes that. But it is going to be interesting to see how these guys move forward with championships. And when they were all in a big fight, and if nothing happens, fans are definitely going to be talking about that 100%. But anyway, that'll kind of wrap up my All Elite Wrestling drama. I'm sure I'll get into a little bit more of it again when I go over here to the chat, answer some super chats, and see if there's any good comments in the chat. And then we have to talk about Monday Night Raw. We'll make it a quick Raw review. We'll kind of blow through it here. Nothing too earth-shattering happened on the show, but there were some fun moments, and we'll get into that as well before we sign off here. Please do me a favor and continue to smash that thumbs up button. You can also subscribe if you have not yet already. Please do that. We are knocking on the door of 33,000 on the channel, and if you want to join, become a member, you can do that too. But I'm going to cruise all the way back up here and start hitting the super chats that I missed, if there are any. I thought I saw a couple roll in. There's 1, 2. Let me make sure I get it. I hate it when I miss them. Okay, cool. All right, we only missed a couple. That's good. Way less than I thought. Victor Cologne, appreciate that $2. Happy birthday. Thank you so much. I am still 44 years old here in California, but if you live on the East Coast right now in the United States, I am the big 4-5, halfway to 90. Yeah. You know who I share a birthday with is Steve from Steven Larson. I remember that from like 2 years ago. Somebody had pointed that out, or I just discovered it somehow. I don't remember how, but I've always remembered that. So happy birthday to Steve. Not that he's listening or watching, but if he is, happy birthday, dude. Yeah, and that's another thing, Zelius, about Cody Rhodes, too, is that there was a really good chance that he really helped keep up morale there. And because Cody was likable. Some people didn't like Cody. He was, a little bit self-indulgent like we used to get on his case for. But Cody is Cody. Everybody has different, just like Punk is Punk. But I'd rather have somebody like Cody and his attitude in a backstage wrestling locker room than CM Punk's. I think Cody's going to cause a lot less fights, and Cody has always been there for a lot of the wrestlers, and he's been a go-between for a lot of guys, and apparently he was a really good person to have there. He was somewhat adhesive. He was that big locker room leader that people were talking about, and he maybe acted as the glue that kept the threads together there. And with him being gone, combined with CM Punk ready to fight someone at the drop of a hat over the most petty of things. It's made the morale and the entire situation behind the scenes go downhill quickly. So it sucks. WWF Fan 22, thanks for $5. Big Show or Mark Henry would be good for an enforcement role. True, due to their size, but you also have to have somebody that like knows what they're doing. And I'm thinking like this person has to be like a mob enforcer, somebody that not only knows the job of the boss, but can also, be the guy to implement the rules, meaning that I don't know if Mark Henry and Big Show are really cut out for wrestling booking. I think that whoever this person is should have an influence on what they're doing creatively too. Somebody that communicate with Tony Khan, the behavior that he's seen, or, maybe we want to push this guy. He's acting like an asshole backstage, or I caught him jerking off in the in the ladies' room, or like Velveteen Dream putting cameras up, putting his penis cam up at his house at parties, or whatever that disgusting story was. I think he's in jail right now or something. So imagine having, the wonderful LeBron James-like athletic ability, the charisma of Ric Flair, and the only thing that you have to do to become a WrestleMania main eventer one day is not take pictures of your friends' penises. That's all you got to do. And you fail at that task, I ain't got no respect for old Velveeta cheese at all. Or anybody that would be that dumb. But Mark Henry and Big Show, nobody's going to mess with him, true, but I don't know if they really would work in that role. I'd want somebody with like a, almost like a Triple H, to be honest. Somebody like him. That's why I think Jericho could, maybe be a candidate for that, but I also think Jericho can be fiery as well. That's why it's odd that he was the calm one during this, because Jericho has gotten in physical confrontations before. He's gotten in Brock Lesnar's face. He fought Goldberg backstage. Jericho does not play games. So, in that regard, he could be a good person to have back there, but at the same time, he could be, he could have a short fuse at times and maybe not make the best decision. So I don't know if this person even exists. Somebody that can be there, be objective, be a right-hand man to Tony Khan to make sure that his laws are enforced and strike fear into your locker room, to where they know they got to keep it together or there's going to be hell to pay. And it seems like that's the exact opposite of what's going on back there right now. So, yikes. Andrew Mann, go look at the Way Canyon. And several other people, including DDP and Steve Austin in 97, got buried in that WWF locker room. I don't even think Canyon was in WWE in 97. Neither was DDP. Austin was. And Austin was doing pretty well in 97. So nothing was wrong during those years. But, yeah, there's a lot of pretty nasty backstage stuff going on back in the day, stuff that doesn't age well. And when you hear about it in shoot interviews or podcasts now, there is no shoot interviews anymore. Everything's podcast. But whenever you hear about these things, it just doesn't paint wrestling in a good light. It's uncomfortable, and you hear how gross wrestlers were and, the things they were doing, the drugs they were doing, their sexual exploits and the unfaithfulness to their wives, and probably a lot of the assault on women, and all this stuff that was probably pretty common amongst many of our heroes. You don't see that very much now. And so now if it's becoming this, kind of like this high school environment where there's, DMs to journalists to post stories and spread rumors and shit, that's just totally, it's Mean Girls. It's Mean Girls. Deshaun Robinson has a Mean Girls mark. I never saw Mean Girls until maybe a year ago. Elizabeth was finally like, I need to show you Mean Girls. And I'd never seen it. And I knew I would like it if I watched it. I just don't know what took me so long. So I watched Mean Girls about 16 years after it came out. And I did like it. It was an awesome movie. Reading some of these comments here before we get into Raw. Andrew, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. The locker room needs an Undertaker, maybe. Maybe. I thought about Undertaker, but I don't know, man. I don't even know if he'd be the right guy. If you could find, like, someone maybe like a Bill Watts, but without the Bill Watts mentality. Because he sucked in a lot of ways. And he was half-ass racist too. But maybe somebody like that who was a little more, no nonsense. I don't know. I just don't know who the right person would be, because you can't just, sure, you can look at people like, oh, William Regal would be great for that. But who's to say William Regal even wants that? I'm looking for AEW to try to establish some sort of core, authority that WWE had in place for so many years. Tony Khan has got to have people around him. And Vince McMahon, back in the day, he did have, he had the Pat Patterson, at his side, and he did have Bruce Pritchard come along after a while. And he started having, his posse with him that helped him govern, his talent. And I don't know the intricacies of what Tony Khan has got going on back there, but it doesn't sound like he's got, he hasn't established that quite yet. But he's 3 years in, so it takes time. It's very possible that Jericho could become Tony Khan's Pat Patterson. Jericho could play that role. And when he's done and he's out of the ring, he's there and he's present at, the creative meetings, and he's helping put matches together, or he's coming up with ideas or whatever. Pat was generally used to, put together matches. I don't know how good Jericho is at that, but in terms of being like a Pat Patterson type of figure, in terms of him being there at Tony Khan's side for TVs and pay-per-views and things like that, it might help. So I don't know. I just hope whatever they do, they fix shit, because it is not good. Things are not good back there right now. You know what I mean? That would be my advice anyway. But we can revisit some of that if you want as we go through here. But I got to get into Monday Night Raw as well. So let's talk about that. Tonight we did see the return of Braun Strowman. That was heavily rumored. I did see a Fightful Select article earlier in the day that did detail some Raw plans, and they were informed that there was going to be a segment where a car was going to be flipped over. Since The Miz and Tommaso Ciampa, welcome back Tommaso, by the way, witnessed that upside-down car. Wasn't it them when they were arriving at the arena? You kind of thought maybe it would be Dexter Lumis, but if you're going to bring Strowman back, tipping over a vehicle is kind of his thing. So he did make his return tonight. And the other big news is what the show opened with, and that was the Dominic stuff, and I loved it. So Edge wound up opening the show. Of course, at Clash at the Castle, Edge and Rey Mysterio were they lost, right? I forgot what the hell happened. They lost to Judgment Day, or did they win? I forgot what the hell happened. I'm so sorry. But anyway, the three of them are in the ring, either celebrating their loss or celebrating their win, or attaboying after the loss. Dominic winds up kicking Edge right in the balls. He goes down. Great facial on Edge as he's looking at Dom like, why? And he goes down. And then I was immediately, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, cool. This is going to make an interesting dynamic with Edge and Rey now, because Edge is going to want to fight Dominic, but Rey's going to be like, no, that's my son. But then Dominic nails Rey Mysterio as well, takes him out, and winds up turning on his dad. So Edge opens up the show. He talks about Dominic. He said he's known Dominic since he was 5 years old, ever since Rey came into the company. Said that whenever WWE ran San Diego, shout out to San Diego, he said he stayed at their house, and he's always had a good time with Dominic and goofing off in the locker room with him and that sort of thing. But he's not looking at Dominic as a kid anymore. He's looking at him as a superstar who kicked him in the balls. So he demands that Dominic comes out so he can kick his ass. And I knew it as soon as he was calling out Dominic. I'm like, Rey's coming out. Dominic's not going to come out. Rey's going to come out. And even though Rey got clotheslined by Dominic, it's still his son, and he's going to have that conflict with Edge that I figured he would have when all this happened at the Clash. So Rey comes out, says pretty predictable stuff. Look, I understand, but he's still my son. Give me a chance to talk to him or whatever. Rey's just pleading with Edge not to hurt Dominic. But Edge is like, look, I love you, Rey, but this is how I operate. He attacked me, so I'm going to have to beat your son's ass, and I don't care what you think. And that's when Rhea Ripley came out. I loved this. I am so happy they're going in this direction. Rhea Ripley comes out and introduces Dominic. He comes out. He's got all black on. He's got his hair slicked back a little bit, and I'm going to tell you, Rhea is going to rock his world. I am so excited. You know what I want Dominic to do? I want him to get his GED and then take Rhea Ripley to the prom. That's what he needs to do. Oh my God. So I just think that's funny that Buddy Murphy and Aaliyah were together, and now Rhea Ripley and Dominic are not together, but she did introduce him. And based on their relationship previously, with her being the one just to whip his ass every week, I really want them to go in some kink direction with them just because it would be so fun and awesome. Dominic needs this. We even had a crazy pitch long ago of sending Dominic down to horny NXT to hang out with Toxic Attraction. And it can be like spring break for him, and he'll come back like a completely different person. Gotten laid a bunch of times. He's a man now. He's got this attitude, and he'll be like this cocky heel that went down to NXT and just had a time of his life. But here, Rhea Ripley can make a man out of him, and this is something that Dominic needs. Apparently now he's going to be working with Edge, but Dominic and Rhea, I guess, kind of approach ringside, and Ray comes out and gets in their face, but Dominic kind of refuses to look at him. He just kind of looks straight ahead, and Ray is kind of being just blocked by Rhea Ripley and Dominic there, and Dominic just refuses to even acknowledge his dad, and Ray just starts walking to the back, and it was a great shot. It was well done with Dominic, just looking stoic straight ahead, not moving, and Ray just heartbroken, like looking behind and walking with his head down. It made you feel sad for Rey Mysterio. But if we've learned anything from AEW, when your son or sons turn on you, maybe what Rey should do is just go form a little alliance and start hanging out with the Street Profits. And maybe they can, I don't know, come up with some hand gesture or chant for the crowd. I don't know. Maybe something involving scissors. Who knows? But usually when people are betrayed by their offspring, they're a little bit more mad, and that's why I like what Rey is doing a lot more than what Billy Gunn is doing. So Rey is conflicted now. It's kind of like how Brett was when Owen first turned on him. He kind of refused to fight him at first, and then it took a while. He had to be forced into it via the coin flip in order to actually do it. But I think that doing it this way, Rey puts himself in a good position to where it's going to make the conflict interesting, where he doesn't want Edge to hurt his son. And that, I don't know, maybe they want to lead to an Edge and Rey Mysterio match again or something, but Edge is adamant that even though he loves Rey, it's not going to stop him. So Rey finds himself to where he doesn't really want to fight his son yet, but he'll probably get to that point, much like Brett got there with Owens. So while all this is going on and Rey is leaving, Damian Priest and Finn Balor attack Edge in the ring. And when Rey tries to run back out there to help Edge, Rhea Ripley and Dominic block him. And that was an interesting... I love that. That was well done, because Rey is not going to punch his son, and he's not going to punch Rhea Ripley. He's fucked. He can do nothing. It's like an electric fence. You just cannot penetrate it, and he can't do anything to get through it. I mean, maybe he could have barreled his way through or whatever, but that would have forced a physical confrontation, and he doesn't want to hurt his son, and he doesn't want to beat up a woman. So he's just SOL while Edge gets worked over in the ring. They ended up taking a chair to Edge's leg and kind of Pillmanizing his leg a little bit with that, which surprised me because I thought that was going to be their way of, I guess, writing Edge off TV for a while. But they did announce Rey Mysterio and Edge and Dominic one-on-one next week. They would announce that later on with a Ripley promo or something. Our first match up was a fatal four-way number one contenders match to determine the next challengers for the Usos. Los Lotharios taking on the Street Profits, also versus the New Day, also versus Alpha Academy. This match ended in a no contest because randomly, in the middle of the match, Braun Strowman's music hits. Braun! And the crowd jumps up. He comes out. He looks great, very lean, dressed in all in red. And he runs out and just murders all 8 guys. He looked in great shape. He looked as the best I've ever seen him, but he did look a little, I don't know, like slower in his movements or something. Even the power slam that he did through the table didn't look that intense. Like, he used to come out with so much fire, and he still had that fire. It just, I guess maybe I was hoping for Braun Strowman from 2016, and we didn't get that. But it was pretty fun to watch him just annihilate people, because after he was done killing everybody, babyfaces and heels, they go to commercial but leave it on split screen while he continues just to kill everyone. And we come all the way back from commercial, and the murdering is still happening. Finally, he leaves. Later on in the show, they would catch him backstage leaving the arena. where he would say that he's going to SmackDown this Friday, and we will find out soon what his motivations are. So I don't know what he's going to go there to do. If I had to guess, what we're going to see on SmackDown on Friday is Braun Strowman probably attacking and annihilating Maximum Male Models in Hit Row. I can see a segment with both of those factions in the ring, or maybe a match with both of those factions with team members, and then Strowman comes out and kills everybody. Or maybe he's there for bigger reasons. I mean, a guy like Strowman isn't going to come in and, work his way up the card. I mean, he's kind of a main eventer. He's a former champion, and he might target Roman Reigns right away. Maybe he's just brought in to be another challenger for Roman because he is running out of guys. You got to find guys for Roman to face before he gets to Cody. So maybe Strowman is here now to rekindle what he had with Roman Reigns. Nobody can beat Roman. Roman has, dominated everybody, and maybe Strowman comes out and says, there was a time that I did dominate you, and I'm here to do that again, and or whatnot. But I have no interest in seeing Braun Strowman win the WWE title again, like none, zero, zilch, not at all. Please, God, no. But I could see him maybe feuding with Roman. Somebody even brought up in the chat earlier, maybe he's going to approach or attack the bloodline and bring some family members with him. I mean, there's only one really, Bray Wyatt. Actually, Redbeard, I thought he signed with AEW, so he might be tied up now. The only family member to really bring back would be Wyatt. But I don't know if I'm attaching Wyatt to Strowman. That seems like a pairing that wouldn't match today. Maybe back in the day when he first started. But Strowman has changed a lot. Go look at his debut. He looks like a different person. He was so big. I mean, he was just massive, not only with his muscles, but just with his girth. Now he's kind of leaned up a little bit. So we'll see what he winds up doing on SmackDown on Friday, which brand he's going to kind of plant his feet in, if he's going to go right after Roman Reigns, or if they're just going to do another annihilation segment where he just murders a couple of guys. That's why I think it's likely that he'll do something with Hit Row and Maximum Male Models, or maybe he goes after Gunther for the Intercontinental title or something. He did hold that ugly-ass belt that Gunther currently holds, so maybe he comes back after that. But I think they're trying to reintroduce Strowman to us, so I don't know if his motivations are going to be made known on Friday. That's why I don't think he's going to confront Roman. Because I think they're going to do something else first. But we'll see. He's going to be on SmackDown either way. The match wound up no contest, so no winner was declared here. They will probably run this back on Friday. Maybe Strowman comes out and interrupts it again. I don't know. They'll either do it on Friday, or perhaps they just do it again on Monday next week. But they're going to have to determine the Usos' next challengers at some point. Speaking of tag teams, we had Dakota Kai. Dakota. Why do I have Dakota written here? Aaliyah, excuse me. I have Dakota and Raquel, because they used to be a tag team, facing Nikki, ASH, and Doudrop. But it is Aaliyah and Raquel. Newly crowned women's tag team champions, won the belts last week, and they have their first title defense here against Nikki, ASH, and Doudrop. Pretty quick match here. Raquel pins Doudrop for the win after basically power bombing her off the top rope. Doudrop was already up there, and she kind of gets her and hoists her up and is able to kind of choke slam, power bomber type of thing for the win. And Aaliyah is very happy when she wins. And that's all I have to say about that. Austin Theory hits the ring hits the ring next. And yes, I said Austin Theory. He's been given back his first name as well. So has Tommaso Ciampa. And the next name I hope they fix are the two women that we just saw in the previous match, Nikki, ASH, and Doudrop. I would love for Doudrop to do a promo or a segment on TV where she said, "This is a stupid gimmick. I'm Piper Niven now." And maybe Nikki ASH goes back to being Nikki Cross, because with Triple H in charge, I think Triple H thinks enough of us as fans that we can tell the difference between a female who spells her last name with a C and a man who spells his last name with a K. I think we can tell them apart. It's just me. I don't know. I don't know if you guys can, but I'm pretty confident that if you showed me a picture of Nikki Cross and Karrion Kross, I wouldn't have trouble determining who is who. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one. You guys let me know. Can you tell them apart? So I would love to see them hit those two next if they are in this name-changing kick. But Austin has got his name back, and that's fun, because I can't tell you how fun it was to type Owens beats Austin with the stunner in my raw notes. But anyway, Theory comes out to the ring, and he's selling the punch from Tyson Fury at Clash at the Castle. And he immediately, at the beginning of his promo, calls the pay-per-view Crown Jewel. And then he immediately corrects himself. He goes, Crown Jewel, just kidding, Clash at the Castle. It was such a quick recovery that it almost seemed like he botched that on purpose. So as he would continue his promo, he was stumbling a few more of his words. And then when he would blame the jaw. He'd be like, fuck. So I thought he did that so well, I can't tell that if he legitimately botched these things and he just recovered so well and he just recovered really well, I should say, or if they're trying to sell the fact that he got punched in the face so hard that he can't talk and he can't speak correctly. And maybe he got his noodle jumbled around a little bit. So I couldn't tell there, but it was kind of funny the way he quickly corrected himself there, and then he stumbled his words a few times and then blamed the jaw and yelled at the fans. I thought that was funny. And he was then confronted by Kevin Owens, who comes out to the ring and made mention to Austin when Austin says he's the hand-picked future of WWE, and Owens said, you were the hand-picked future of WWE, but you're not anymore. And he said that he would have ended Roman Reigns' run 6 months in, 18 months ago with the Royal Rumble when he was screwed out of that victory, and he definitely was. And he was also not in the Money in the Bank match, and if he was, he'd be the one carrying around that briefcase, and he'd be the next champion. So then a match is proposed, and we get Kevin Owens against Austin Theory one-on-one. I thought this match was really good, to be honest. I love Kevin Owens and his work, and Austin is not horrible. He's unlikable, but, maybe Triple H now with him being in charge, he doesn't have the blinders on that Vince McMahon does. So with Vince, he just wants to push whoever he wants and he doesn't give a fuck. But with Triple H says, no, he's not ready. The fans are not ready for him. So let's work him for a while. Let's put him on Raw as many weeks as we can. Give him 15-minute matches with top-level talent. And if he strings enough of those up, and fans are saying that Theory and Owens match was really good, that Theory and Balor match was really good, or whatever, week by week, maybe he can get enough respect, so to speak, to where the company can justify putting the belt on him. Because with Vince, he's just like, I like his abs. He's our champion. Triple H might be a little bit more level-headed than that and a little bit less horny and say, okay, if this is who we want, let's give him a chance. But we got to we got to see if he can handle the pressure, the schedule, the matches, the stage, and really get a look on him and see if he can get and change the public opinion and fans' opinion of him. Because I don't think there's anybody in this chat that is chomping at the bit to see Austin Theory become the champion, even over somebody like Roman Reigns. Even the assholes out there that are like so mad, they get so mad when like champions hold the belt for a long time, which I think is funny. But whenever they get all uppity about that, I'm like, okay, but would you really prefer Austin Theory in that situation? Do you hate him winning so much? That's why I used to ask the same question with John Cena. I'm like, do you hate him so much that you are really okay with Brodus Clay beating him? Like, what the fuck? So Austin had a good match here with Owens, and Owens is, he's slimmed down a lot. He's never, of course, been a body guy, but he's always had incredible agility. And even now that he's been around so long, he's still doing great stuff in there. And that swanton bomb that he hit was unbelievable grace. More gorgeous than anything that Jeff Hardy has thrown in the last 15 years. And I mean that. They showed a replay of it. It looked amazing. So in the end, Kevin Owens is able to catch Austin Theory with the stunner for the win. But Theory put up a really good fight. I thought it was a good match, and Owens got the win as he should, because Kevin Owens, man, there might not be anybody that I want to see win the title more than him, because I just think he supremely deserves it. It has been 6 years now. It was 2016, right? When he won right after SummerSlam, won the Universal title. Universal title is only 6 years old, and Roman Reigns has held the Universal title for a third of its life. That's crazy. Hell, maybe even more than that, because I think he held the Universal title prior. Wasn't he Universal Champion when he had to take time off for the leukemia battle? I think he had the title there. So I'm curious, in the entire lifespan of the Universal title, Roman Reigns might have held it for half the time. That's kind of interesting. But Kevin Owens is extremely overdue. for this day in the sun. He already had the big moment, main evented WrestleMania with Steve Austin this year, which was just incredible. Reward this man. There ain't a fan out there, I don't think. Even the asshole-ish of assholes out there, I don't think would have a problem with Owens being champion, because he's great. He can do everything. He can talk, and he can wrestle. He's entertaining. He has charisma, and he's a likable person. People like working with him. He's got a great reputation, and just good dude. Fucking opposite of CM Punk, I would make Kevin Owens my CM Punk if I was WWE. You're kind of unconventional looking top guy like CM Punk, made a career on. So it was a good match there. We had a pretty predictable, boring promo with Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky. They come out to the ring, talk shit. Bianca Belair comes out, and she pitches a match with Bayley. She says run it back from the pay-per-view, but she says one-on-one. So if they ran it back, it would be the 6 women tag. And you have not consulted with Asuka and Alexa Bliss on this yet, have you, Bianca Belair? So no, you will not be running it back, but she did want to face Bayley one-on-one. Bayley, of course, is not going to do that, and she doesn't. The crew backs off. They get out of the ring, and they just leave. And I don't even think we had any physicality in that at all. And up next, we had Damian Priest taking on Rey Mysterio. And this was, of course, a very dejected Rey trying to figure out what to do, how to manage this. He's got to deal with his son, but now his son is a member of this faction that he's feuding with, so he has to inflict punishment on his enemies without harming his son, who is also his enemy. Rey's in a tight spot. Even with Edge with him, he's in a tight spot, and Edge, of course, got knocked out earlier on in the night. Priest wound up winning this match with a lot of Judgment Day help at ringside and a lot of Dominic and Rey teases. And that's when Ripley later on after the match would announce that Dominic will face Edge next week. That's what she says, but Edge got hurt in that earlier match. So maybe the story here is that Edge is going to go into this match with Dominic with one leg or something. Is that what they're telling? Because I was in and out of the room when some of this was happening, so that's what I could gather from it. So that'll be interesting, Edge and Dominic next week, and you got to think that Rey is going to be pleading with Edge to not go too hard on his boy and whatnot. So that should be interesting. We'll see how it goes next week on Raw. We will be here for a Raw review, most likely. Yeah, we definitely will be, because I got some news on this week's videos, and not all of it is good. Anyway, the main event was The Miz versus Bobby Lashley for the United States title in a steel cage match. This was weird to me because, help me out and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't The Miz lay down the challenge to Lashley? I understand, and Lashley then accepted. I think this was all done on social media. I understand that The Miz wants to protect himself from Dexter Lumis, but if by doing that means you have to be locked in a box with Bobby Lashley, I might just take Dexter Lumis, to be honest with you, because now you're stuck in there, and if you leave, it's like being in a shark cage with a shark, Like if you go outside of the shark cage, there's sharks, but there's also a shark in your cage. So what are you doing here? And why would you voluntarily put yourself inside of a metal fence box with Bobby Lashley? Fucking crazy. So maybe The Miz is slowly turning babyface here or something, but this is not the typical behavior of a heel. So Miz apparently laid down the challenge for this. Lashley, of course, accepted, because why wouldn't he? And like I said earlier, too, we had an earlier interview with Ciampa and The Miz backstage where they referred to Ciampa as Tommaso Ciampa. So it looks like he has recovered his first name as well. And he was a major factor in this match. I was concerned, though, because I was like, this match is the main event. Lashley and The Miz have faced a couple of times. Miz, I think, even cashed in and won the title in a Lashley and Drew match. Wasn't that what it was? So I was worried that Miz was going to win the U.S. title here, because I was like, I don't want to see that. I want to see his stuff with Dexter Lumis continue. And I didn't really think that Lashley would need help from Dexter Lumis to beat The Miz. But luckily, The Miz had his backup, Ciampa, that was a big factor in this. And he rammed the steel cage door into Lashley's head a bunch of times and was able to neutralize him and get Miz basically to climb the cage and escape, because they decided this one would have an escape the cage thing. And I even had this idea in my head. I didn't tweet it, but my exact thought was Miz should try to escape the cage and Lumis should come from underneath. We've seen a couple of cage spots where somebody's trying to escape and they wind up on the shoulders of somebody else. They're trying to like block them. So I thought Loomis could come from under the ring and block the Miz some way, but instead they did this amazing overhead shot of Miz climbing down and then Loomis basically sliding from underneath the ring, like basically a mechanic who's working under a car comes sliding out on one of those little rollers, and he just slides out, and you see the camera, the overhead camera, you see the Miz looking down, and Loomis's face just looking straight up with his eyes, and it spooks the Miz, allows Bobby Lashley, because I think Miz gets back in the cage and Lashley takes care of him and ends it, retains the U.S. title, and after the match, Dexter chases the Miz back into the cage, and he's basically confronted or sandwiched in there with Dexter in the cage and Lashley standing at the door saying, "You ain't getting out this way." So there's nowhere for him to run, and Dexter takes him down, and the show goes off the air with Loomis holding the Miz like a baby and petting the top of his head. It was adorbs. So that's the way Raw went off the air. Not a super eventful show, but hey, I wouldn't have put something major happening here. AEW is dominating all the headlines right now. Braun Strowman was enough. The rest of the show I thought was pretty good. I trust the show in Triple H's hands much more, so if we get a Raw that maybe isn't as over the top or as exciting as the one the previous week, I'm not going to freak out too much because I know that there's a little bit more method to Triple H's madness than there was with Vince, and I can accept a little more of what they're going to give me. But in terms of tonight, wasn't the most earth-shattering Raw, but it really didn't need to be. So we got a while until their next pay-per-view, which is Extreme Rules in October, and we got plenty of time to build all of those issues. So that now officially makes it to the end of my notes. I, according to my notes, have nothing else to talk about. So we can go over here to the chat. I'll see if there's any other great questions or anything to talk about in here, and then I'm going to get out of here for the rest of the night. Now, the next planned video is going to be interesting. It's going to be this Wednesday. We're going to do our Wednesday watch along of AEW Dynamite. So we'll be up here to watch that together. Should be very interesting. By then, we might learn some stuff. If we get any big news tomorrow or whatever, I'll come up here with a mic drop or something. But on Wednesday, we'll be watching Dynamite together, and we might know a lot more information than we know now going into that. So there might be some big stories drop. We might find out something in the morning. AEW has handed down suspensions or fines or something in order to damage control this whole situation that's going on. But either way, going into Wednesday should be interesting because combined with the fact that we have a new champion and MJF is back along with the drama, should make for some interesting wrestling watching on Wednesday. After that, we have the Winged Eagle podcast scheduled for Saturday again, but unfortunately this Sunday, September 11th, there will not be a classic pay-per-view watch-along, but I'm going to make up for it on a different day. I just got to find one. So I will be talking to the channel members about what show we're going to watch next, and then I will find the proper time, but I actually have a family engagement on Sunday, so we're not going to be able to be here to do the watch along. There's a lot of football on. NFL is back now, so sometimes on Sundays we might miss a week, or we're going to be going head to head with a big Sunday night game. Whenever that happens, I'm going to have my TV pointed right at me, so we'll watch the pay-per-view. I'll have football on here, and it'll be a nice football wrestling hangout. We'll start doing that on Sundays, but unfortunately this week is going to be out, but I'm going to look at my schedule and try to find an alternative for that because there's a lot going on this week. My birthday is tomorrow. I also have Cobra Kai Season 5 starting this week. We got a podcast to do. AEW's flying off the rails, and I might have to come up here for a quick video if we learn any earth-shattering or breaking news. There's a lot going on, so this week will be a little weird. We'll be here on Wednesday. We'll be here on Saturday for the podcast, but unfortunately not on Sunday. But I think Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday, there could be some video from me because I just don't think the news is going to stop. There's going to be a reason to come up here and do some sort of an update, I'm sure. So I'll look at everything and we'll make sure that there's plenty of content on the channel, and we will make up for the watch along that I'm going to miss. And I'm also going to be talking about to the channel members about what 2-hour show to watch. It can be a 2-hour WWE pay-per-view, a Raw, a Nitro, a Clash of Champions, anything that's available on Peacock and it's wrestling, and it's 2 hours. We're going to do members-only videos starting this month. So we will determine the time and date and whatever show we're going to do there. So if you are one of our hardcore members, just keep a lookout for all of that. And, oh, you know what? I did not even mention that we did get a Johnny Gargano interview tonight, and he is making his in-ring return to WWE next week after 9 months off. So Gargano, Johnny Wrestling returns next week in the ring. Thank you for that reminder. AEW needs Vince Russo. No, AEW does not. There's a lot of things they need. It ain't Vince Russo. Yeah, you got to think about Tony Khan's dad. The Jacksonville Jaguars aren't exactly NFL's most storied franchise. So AEW does not want to become the Jacksonville Jaguars of professional wrestling. So get your act together, Khans, because we want a thriving, achieving, good AEW where the fans like it, like they have been. Everything has been great so far. So I'm not surprised that they hit a rough patch. I figured, every company's going to hit a rough patch, but this is a rough fucking patch. This is a flat out sinkhole they've driven right into. And it's going to take a lot to pull your ass out of that. And there's going to be questions and there's going to be criticisms, and AEW is literally just right in the eye of the storm right now. So I think it's going to take some time for this to settle and for them to figure out what they're going to do, how this talent is going to continue to coexist, who's going to stay, who's going to go. Speaking of goings, looks like Malachi Black, should have mentioned this earlier too, I forgot. Looks like Malachi Black might be gone. I put a mic drop up on this, taken from last night's review, just speculating that he might be gone based on his loss in the Trios tournament and taking the pin and getting misted by Sting at All Out last night. I thought that could have been it, but then we see the videos that surface of House of Black leaving the ring last night and Malachi blowing kisses. He did a little bow. He was hugging with his faction cohorts. It looks like he might be gone. So he's either getting released or maybe he's taking some time off. There has been some well-documented mental health issues with him, so whatever's going on there, just really hope the best for him. And if he is taking time off for himself, hopefully he comes back better than ever. If this does turn out to be a release of some kind, and Tony Khan is kind enough to actually let him go and be okay with the fact that this guy's gonna go right over to WWE and be with his wife. If Tony Khan's cool with that, hey, I think Tony Khan's got so many other bigger problems in AEW. The last thing he needs to do is do what WWE does to a lot of talent, do what WWE did to Luke Harper. Don't be that way, Tony Khan. If this guy wants to go, let him go. I know you don't want to set a precedent. You don't want to put the idea in people's heads that, if I just go to Tony Khan with some sob story, he'll let me go. You should treat each situation differently because each situation is the same. Malachi Black wanting a release is not the same thing as Luke Harper, Mustafa Ali, or Roderick Strong wanting their release. Every situation is different. It just depends. So in this specific situation, if the best thing to do for Malachi Black is to release him, I say release him. There might be other situations where other things might be better for that person. But if, he asks for help, AEW has already shown that they are more than willing to help out any talent who needs it, with Jon Moxley going to rehab and them allowing him to take as much time as he needs and rewarding him with a world title when he came back. So they seem to be there for people when they need it, and hopefully AEW just does right by Malachi Black, whatever his request is or whatever the compromise is. But based on how he was acting after the match, kind of looked like that might have been his farewell. It just remains to be seen if that's a temporary or permanent farewell, and he actually is going to be gone from the company. But Bobby Fish has recently been out as well, so we know he's going to be probably heading back to WWE as well, possibly be a coach or a trainer or something at NXT. And regardless of where Malachi Black works, I honestly think in WWE or AEW he's a main event world title contender, or should be anyway, and it's almost a crime that he's not. So I think AEW has tried more with him. The House of Black faction is fun, and he's had a lot of influence on it, but it doesn't get the stable, consistent TV time that WWE does give people. And sometimes I wonder when fans complain about, and talent even gets frustrated with their lack of TV time, It's because I think a lot of what we've seen from WWE over the years, we get so many hours of their shows, and then they did the brand split where you get more talent involved. And it got to the point where basically on Raw or SmackDown, every major piece of talent was featured on the show. And when somebody isn't there, fans are like wondering where they were. When I was a kid, I didn't see the entire roster every week. And if I went a week and Honky Tonk Man wasn't on the show, I wasn't wondering where Honky Tonk Man was or if anything's wrong or why is he not getting TV time. It was just different back then. So it was a different time, but even now I think we're so tailored to WWE's type of content, and the fact that everybody who's involved in a storyline or currently doing something is featured every week. Even if it's just a backstage interview or a recap package, they have some sort of an influence on the show. They're just not randomly absent. Sometimes they are. But whenever that happens, people ask, where's Kevin Owens or where's Ezekiel or whatever? So in AEW, they don't have that, repetitiveness where they just find some segment for everybody to do every week. Now they just kind of go more with the flow. The talent isn't on TV every week, and then it kind of creates the illusion that they're not given enough TV time and they're not, being featured properly, and some of them aren't. I think Thunder Rosa, they've made big mistakes with her. But a lot of the talent probably went to AEW precisely for the less grueling schedule. But now that they're there, they're realizing that they do work a heck of a lot less than they did in WWE. And I always complain that WWE put talent out in the ring in meaningless matches that means nothing, that just puts wear and tear and adds miles to their body for no reason when the match doesn't mean anything. But now when you're in AEW, it's the complete opposite of that, where you can find yourself going 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks without wrestling. And that can be rough too. So it just depends on what Malachi Black's situation is, because I don't know. Just hope the best for him. Malachi Black, Aleister Black, Tommy End, whatever you want to call him, great talent. No reason whatsoever why this guy should not be in contention for some world title in any company. So wherever he lands, whether he comes back to AEW, goes to WWE, whatever he does, we don't care. We just support him, and that's all that matters. So we'll keep our eye on Malachi Black. So, yeah, I think a super chat's coming in. I'll knock out anything that's left, and then I am going to get out of here. Thank you very much for that $5, Zane G. You're out. Good night and happy birthday. Good night to you, too. I'm going to be getting out of here, too. Thanks to everybody that is now hanging out very late at night with me. Michael Cuomo, appreciate the $2 from you, my friend, and thank you very much for the birthday wish as well. Rarely even, what team do I support? Chargers, Panthers. Well, I have no Chargers anymore. They've moved to L.A. It's hard to support them, even though I have nothing against the players based on how they left here and everything. I can't believe that San Diego only has one professional team. This is a great city, so it blows my mind. But I'm also from Detroit. I was born in Pontiac, Michigan, home of WrestleMania 3, and I've always been loyal to my home teams. But, the Lions, what's the point of rooting for them? But I do want them to succeed. I just know that they won't. Panthers, kinda. I was living in North Carolina when the Panthers were created. I remember when the promotion started and seeing the shirts around, but it didn't have that home field or home team feel that all my Detroit teams gave me, because that was my birthplace. By this point I was just living down there and didn't really care too much about the Panthers, but don't dislike them at all. I kind of don't have a team, which makes football season really fun, because now I get to watch great games and enjoy them without stressing out too much about what my team is doing. It's kind of nice. I kind of like it. Back when the Padres used to suck so bad, they're doing pretty good now. But going to baseball games at Petco was nice. You go when they're playing the fucking Pirates or something, there's nobody there. And Petco's a nice baseball stadium. And you can have gorgeous nights at the ballpark here in San Diego, and there's nobody, it's not a very full building because the Padres suck and we're playing Pittsburgh. So if it's a Mets game or Giants game, there's a lot of people coming in, but nobody cares about the Pirates. Sorry, no offense, Pittsburgh. So it was nice going to the games and just enjoying being at the ballpark without being crowded by people and gobs of people in the bathroom and those piss troughs that the men pee in and the nasty concession stands. It's peaceful. So sometimes when your teams suck or they're not very good, there are benefits to that. So there's benefits to being a loser. That's all I'm saying. LA Rams, yeah. I mean, Matt Stafford is there. He won a Super Bowl with them, and I'm happy for him just because he had to put up with so many years in Detroit. So good for him. I saw there was like a photo of the Lions raising a championship banner that read, "Our former quarterback won a Super Bowl." I just thought that was funny. That's the closest to a Super Bowl that they're going to get, is what the LA Rams did last year. But anywho, I am going to get out of here now. I am exhausted. It's been quite the weekend. You guys have a great rest of your night. Like I said, if something crazy happens tomorrow, we hear about multiple AEW suspensions or anything like that, we'll come up here and talk about it. Otherwise, I will see you on Wednesday for the AEW Dynamite Watch Along. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. I cannot wait for that. So thanks for staying up late. Thanks for hanging out for 2+ hours, 2 nights in a row. We haven't done that since the good old days back here on the streaming channel, or on the streaming nights. So I appreciate that. And have a great rest of your Monday. Thank you again for everything. Thanks for the birthday wishes. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the support. And just thanks for being here. Smash that thumbs up button on your way out the door, and I'd appreciate it. Y'all take care.